The Still Loading podcast is brought to you by the wonderful patrons over on Patreon. These awesome individuals such as Stephen P., Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, Gilmer, and Mr. Biscuits were all wonderful enough to support the show. If you want to be like them, get your name read at the beginning of the episode, and get a bunch of other goodies, go to patreon.com/stillloadingpod to check it all out. On this episode of Still Loading, it's episode 300. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and you heard that right in the little tagline. It is episode 300 of the podcast. It is also the kickoff of Mario Mania, a 7-week-long Mario extravaganza filled with lots of Mario content, which actually I think at the time we're recording this, I have not announced the schedule, but the schedule will have been announced. So you do know that next week is going to be a Super Mario Super Show episode, followed by a bunch of Mario Kart episodes. So there's a lot of Mario coming at you over the next month. And to kick it off, I am joined by 4 wonderful guests, and they're going to be drafting their ideal, or as close to ideal as possible, Super Mario game. And then you, the listener, will get to vote on who had the best Super Mario game. Let's announce all these guests here, all the contestants for episode 300 Super Mario Fantasy Draft. We are going to start off with a returning guest from last year's Winter of Final Fantasy, Keith from the Main Quest podcast. Keith, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. Glad to be back here on Still Loading, and congratulations on 300, man. This is a big episode. I'm nervous now.
Did I not tell you?
No, I don't. Maybe I missed the memo. Maybe it got lost in the shuffle here with all the directions and stuff. But
I asked one of our other guests, hey, did I tell you it was episode 300? And they're like, yep, you told me. I guess I thought I forgot to tell someone. It looks like it was you. You're the lucky winner on this one.
It's all good. And I do want to preface before we begin tonight that if anybody disagrees with any of my picks or is offended by anything I say tonight, don't worry. It's not you. It's a me.
Boo.
Wow.
Well, let's move on over to technically not a first-time guest, but it's first-time guest on the main feed. Joining us is Diamond from Retronauts. Diamond has appeared on Still Bonding, my Patreon show, numerous times, but it is their first time on the podcast in earnest on the main feed. Diamond, how are you doing today?
I'm great, but now I'm nervous because I made all these notes for GoldenEye. I guess we got the wrong game set up here. Sorry. It's all right. It's all right. Mario, I know Mario. I know Mario. He's a little guy, wears a tuxedo, carries a gun. I know Mario. Yeah.
Never pick Mario in. Is Odd Job the Mario of the GoldenEye universe?
Well, he does throw his hat.
there we go. Our third guest, a first time period, has never been on any form of Still Loading. Matt Storm. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. I regret to have drafted the entire Yakuza franchise. That's my list. And big mistake. I mean, not many Italians in those games, though there are a few here and there. And they make fun of us stupid Americans. And honestly, it's great every time they do it. But in all seriousness, yeah, I'm excited to be here and fight for the best player 2 out there, which I will reveal later. But
yeah, you can't give away your
go-to. Draft. No, can't. I gotta hold tight.
And listeners, Matt is from a myriad of many podcasts. They are from the Fun and Games podcast, the Reignite podcast, and the Screen Snark podcast, among many other things that you have your hands in. You also work with a Game Informer as well, right?
Yes, I edit their audio version of their podcast. So the video version isn't me, but I edit the audio version. So if you're listening to it on podcast players, that's me. Or I should, I guess, say, that's a me.
Maybe that's how we should have started off. Everyone has to give their best. That's a me.
I'm not doing accents today. I'm sorry.
Fair. That's all. That's totally
it's offensive.
fair.
It's offensive to the proud,
The Italian
brave
people
of Northwest America, where they make the American Mario games. Yeah, sure.
And last but not least, our final guest rounding out this pantheon of Mario fanatics is Try from My Life in Gaming. Try, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing great. I've been looking forward to this. I was on your first Final Fantasy draft. I was telling y'all before we started recording that it was the most fun I've ever had recording a podcast, and I think it was like pretty much immediately after we finished it, you and I were talking like, oh man, like, what other game series like could this be done for? And here we're doing Mario, so this is great.
Yeah, after we finished that episode, I remember us brainstorming about this. And actually, I have to give you a huge shout out, Try, because you're the one that helped me pick the categories, helped me pick all the pools that all our contestants here are drafting from. So hopefully that doesn't give you a leg up. I don't think it does, but hopefully it does not give you a leg up on the competition. So let's dive into this, everybody. The rules real quick. This is a snake draft. And for those who would like a different version of this, I do the Final Fantasy drafts every year. Well, now it's an annual thing. There's going to be another one later on this year. But the way it works is that this is a snake draft. So it'll go 1 through 4. And then at the end of the first round, actually in our draft order, I can at least announce it here, is Matt gets the first pick. They get the first overall pick, then followed by Keith with the second pick, Tribe with the third pick, and Diamond with the fourth pick. And then because Diamond goes last, he gets the first pick of the second round, and it loops back and forth, and it just kind of goes back and forth. So Matt and Diamond technically will get to pick twice in a row, but they have to wait the longest in between those double picks. So it's a snake draft. The categories that they will be drafting from: graphics/visuals, gameplay/controls, player 2, which player 2 sprite or character do they want to choose to represent the player 2 in their Mario game. There are 4 different categories for world themes, so they will be competing. The 4 of them will be competing for which world themes will go into their game, which power-ups. There's 3 slots for power-ups. Those are 3 separate categories. There's also a bosses category and a soundtrack category, totaling 12 different categories, and that will round out their Mario draft. For those who are interested, if they want to see what is all available in the draft pool, I will not be reading all of that off here. That would be tedious and a lot. But if you are curious, I do have a Google Doc that I am willing to share, just like I did with the Final Fantasy draft. So if you're curious and you and your friends would like to do your own Mario Fantasy draft, just shoot me an email, stillloadingcontact@gmail.com, and I can send you a link to the Google Doc, and you're more than welcome to copy it. I actually, when we did the first Final Fantasy draft try, one of your viewers reached out to me and said they wanted to do it with them and their friends. So yeah, awesome. That was pretty cool. But I think that covers it. Do any of you contestants have any questions before we begin?
A million, but I'm just going for it. I don't care.
I do have one question about the flex rule. I know we covered it off air, but I'd rather just embarrass myself on air instead.
I think that's a good thing. Go on.
So, I guess, do you want to explain the flex rule first, and then I'll ask my question so the listeners know?
That is a very good, sure thing. So
it's like I've done this before.
That's why I get a whole bunch of fellow podcasters. And actually, Try, I know you're not a podcaster, but you've been on enough that you might as well be one at this point.
Yep. Honorary.
You're an honorary podcaster, but y'all cover my ass when I drop the ball. So the flex rule is something where each of the contestants here can flex in one pick from outside of the Super Mario series, but it has to be Mario related. So when we say Super Mario series, we mean Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, 3, World, all the ones that are kind of in like the mainline platforming Mario series. We did also include in this Yoshi's Island, even though that's kind of not really a Mario game, but it's Super Mario World 2. So if people give me enough shit, maybe I'll remove it. But for the time being, the commissioner made the ruling that it's staying in. Plus, it's got a banger soundtrack, so I wanted to keep that on the table for the contestants here. But say there's something outside of those games that you really love, like from Super Mario RPG or from Paper Mario or from Mario Kart or Mario Tennis or something like that, and you really want to find a way to incorporate it into your Mario game, well, you can use the flex rule to do so. The only catch is you can only use it once in the entirety of the draft. So if you decide to flex in Geno as your player too, first off, no one else can have Geno. And second off, you can't use flex again later on in the draft. So those are the general rules for it. So Matt, what is your question with the flex rule?
My question is, what does Mario related mean? Like, what is the limit? Like, say other characters that maybe we have in the player 2 list have their own franchises. Can we flex in something from their franchise as well?
So
or
like
is it
Super
just
Princess
specific
Peach type of thing?
Correct. Or maybe Luigi's Mansion, something like that.
That is a damn good question. You know what? I want to say I'll allow it, but I feel like that gives too much free reign, because then that like when you have so much when you have too much variety, it limits the competition a bit. It kind of stifles it, because then there's almost too much to choose. I think any game where Mario appears, even if it's a cameo. So if Mario appears in a cameo in Luigi's Mansion that I'm unaware of, I will trust you. I'm the commissioner.
He's definitely.
So you're saying my player 2 could possibly be Mike Tyson from Punch-Out.
I mean, technically, according to the rule that Josh made.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
That's the rule I made.
Could it be Hawk from Pilotwings 64 because Mario's face is on Mount Rushmore?
But Mario's not a character in it, so I think Mario has to be a character in it, whether it's as a cameo scene or whatnot. But it can't be just like, here's a picture of Mario on the side.
So probably not Cranky Kong, because I don't think Mario's actually in Donkey Kong Country. Although he is at the end of Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, that's just one bridge too far.
That's stretching it a little. I agree. Donkey Kong Country is going a little far.
I think that would be stretching it just a smidge too far. But does that answer your question, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
No problem. Well, let's kick it off, shall we? We are going to draft with the first overall pick in the Super Mario Fantasy Draft for episode 300. Matt, you get the first overall pick. So what pick and what category is your pick from?
So this is really tough, right? Because there are some things that are really, like, Mario is one of those franchises, and I'm not just vamping to decide. I actually have made my pick, but like, I think it's important to say,
keep doing it.
The Mario franchise has some of the best of these things, like graphics, gameplay, bosses, soundtracks. Like, so to pick, like, I could probably pick any of these categories first, and it would be the right choice. And I think that's really freeing and also incredibly anxiety-inducing. But that said, I think because I'm a big music nerd, I have to go with soundtrack. And while all of these soundtracks absolutely slap, I think the undefeated Super Mario soundtrack is Super Mario World, the first one. And so I am picking the soundtrack from Super Mario World.
All right. That is a damn good soundtrack. Hands down, one of my... honestly, it's almost like there's a handful of soundtracks that I'll listen to and they're like comforting to me, and that is one of them.
I have to confess that like the level 1 theme, or just like the outdoor level theme, the non-athletic theme, like the one that you hear in the first couple of levels, like that is like probably like the Mario level theme that gets stuck in my head the most often.
Sure, yeah.
It probably has one of the most iconic castle themes as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. The ghost houses too. Like I always think of those all the time.
The game gave us the goat house. Ghost house, not the ghost house. That is a different factor in a
goat houses are completely different.
And not to mention how the soundtrack kind of changes on a dime once you jump on top of Yoshi.
Yeah.
Bongos. Adding those bongos.
Yeah, I love it. All right, that's a good first overall pick. First overall pick, Super Mario World for the soundtrack. Now, Keith, for the second overall pick, what you picking?
You know, I had a lot of trouble going through this one particular category. It was a lot of research. I'm coming at this mostly as somebody who has played a lot of the Mario games in the 80s and 90s. not so much a lot of the 3D Marios. You kind of miss me after Mario Galaxy for the most part. So I'm going for power-ups here. I'm going with what I know best.
Mm-hmm.
And for my power-up picks, I'm going blue shell.
Now, do we only do one pick for the power-ups, or do we do them all
so there's power-up. There's 3 different power-up picks. So this Keith would still have to draft 2 more power-ups, but I'm assuming your first one then is the blue shell.
Okay, yes. Then my first one is the blue shell, yes.
Okay, so power-up number 1 is off the table. No one else can have a blue shell in their Mario game. It's off the table.
Now, is that like the first new Super Mario Brothers, right?
I think so, right? That's from New Super Mario Brothers,
I kind of
right?
forget how that works. Like, it's like kind of like a defensive thing, and you can like also like bounce around like between blocks like a Koopa shell, I think.
Oh no, Oh no, I thought this was the blue shell for Mario Kart.
Oh, did you not specify the flex?
Oh man.
Yeah, you could flex it in though, right? You can just flex that in.
I could flex
if you didn't
it in.
want to flex something else.
Oh, but
I will allow it I will allow it if you want to switch it over. I know that might ruin the fun of the draft, but I hate
No. We won't do that. You know what? Oh, let me look at what I've got down for my flexes here.
Sorry if I confused anything by chiming in, because I was thinking like blue shell.
No,
from
you did.
New Super Mario Brothers. Like I barely even remember what that does.
I mean, it's what it says on the tin. Like you put a shell on and you can block things, and if you like you have to be running and then you duck, you basically start spinning around on the ground and you can like propel yourself up places.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember it being a little like mechanically confusing at the time.
Yes,
but
yes.
You seem to remember it quite well, though.
I played those games a lot. I think New Super Mario Bros. 2 is underrated. Put it that way.
Yeah, because when I see blue shell, I immediately associate with the all-powerful destroyer of worlds from Mario Kart.
Yeah,
so
and
like,
it would be interesting too to hear how that would fit into like the gameplay style of whatever you end up picking for the gameplay style. That could be, because I don't think that style of blue shell has really appeared in like a platformer, so it'd be interesting to see what it would do.
I mean, technically, Keith,
officially
you could
it's the spiny shell. Okay, there it is. It's blue, but yeah, it has spikes on it, so officially it is a spiny shell that you throw and explodes and things. But no, it is also blue. So
you could also consider the blue shells from Super Mario World, which aren't really a power-up necessarily, but if you hold one in Yoshi's mouth, then he can fly.
It's a Yoshi power-up. It's not a Mario power-up, yeah.
Right.
See, this is where a lot of the litigation comes from. There's a lot of stuff. So it's funny because on the Super Mario Wiki, it has just blue shell. They don't call it. They have the blue Koopa shells and the blue shells, and it's super.
I would assume that the wiki entry is referring to the new Super Mario Brothers.
Well, it lists all of them, and it turns him into Shell Mario as I was that. You know what? If I ever do another Super Mario Fantasy Draft, there is some there. This is play testing on the fly, pretty much. Now I know I should put in like parentheses which game I'm referring to with the power up,
especially for some that are some of the more oddball ones. Like, I mean, Fire Flower, everyone knows what that's from.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Diamond. I believe the blue shell in Super Mario World would not count because that is a Yoshi power up more than it is a Mario power up.
I mean, Mario can't fit in his mouth. It's just too big for Mario to fit in his mouth.
Not with that attitude, he can't.
No. he would need another power up to make a bigger mouth, and then he could put the shell in the mouth, and then like you need like a Crocodile Mario power up. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. I
mean, look, we just got Elephant Mario. I'm telling you, Crocodile Mario could easily happen in the future. Why not?
That'd be pretty great.
The next Mario takes place down in Florida.
A Goomba.
Now, Keith, technically, you could also flex in the blue shell from Super Mario Kart still. That is not off the table. You could have 2 blue shells as your power-ups.
So I actually am looking at my flex list here. I do have a list, and they do apply under the power-ups. I could go for the joke one, which is...
well, don't say it out loud just yet.
I don't think anybody. I think, Listen, Josh, everything I'm picking here is totally unconventional. Nothing I pick tonight is going to make sense.
Fair enough.
The joke flex is from Super Mario RPG, and it's princesses toadstools ? Who knows what item that is?
Oh, I completely forgot that's even a thing in the game.
Oh yeah, and it's in the remake too.
Wow.
Perhaps it's a pleasurable experience to use. But my real flex here is going to be
You can't
the
make
Master Sword from Mario Maker 2.
Oh.
Okay. Well, you know what? Man, I'm kind of into that.
It's not your pick yet, Keith.
Or are you revising your first pick?
No, yeah, I'm revising my first pick. I'm not doing.
So
the blue
you're
shell.
no longer doing the blue shell. You're doing the Master Sword. Wait,
that sounds like it sucks.
I'm so
any of you
confused
pick
with
it.
what you're doing.
I think that's fair because you
didn't know. It's fine. I'll allow it.
Yeah, we didn't
Not that I
understand
have any
what blue
power
shell
here.
we were referring to.
Okay, so what's happening right now? You're sticking with the blue shell for your first power up.
No,
Okay, so
I don't want it.
Okay, so you're doing Master Sword with the flex.
Yes, for my first power up. Yep,
Okay, so you can't do any more flexes.
understood.
Okay, so so much confusion. Holy crap! Try. We're throwing it over to you. Third overall pick.
All right, I am definitely gunning for the gameplay / controls, because Super Mario 64 is the most divinely controlling game that has ever been made, and I will hear no arguments to the contrary. And they've never really replicated it. Now, I can understand why, because I think a lot of aspects of it's almost too fluid. It almost gives you too much control. And I think a lot of people had a hard time kind of adapting to some of that. And there's areas you could certainly improve, like, camera and stuff like that. But I think just Mario's core acrobatic abilities feel so good. And I feel like later games, both Mario and later 3D platformers and 3D action games, they looked at Mario 64 and were like, oh, this is really great, but maybe this is a little slippery there, this is a little slippery there. We should make the character a little stickier to make sure that you don't accidentally do what you didn't mean to do. But when you have a really great handle on those controls, I feel like you can do things in just that playground of a world that just wouldn't have the flexibility to do in most other games. And I, as much as people say oh, Super Mario Odyssey is a real, sort of open follow-up to Mario 64. And it's the closest thing to a follow-up. And I love Mario Odyssey and I love how it controls, but it's not Mario 64. I want another game that controls or builds upon the exact mechanics of Super Mario 64. So that is my core gameplay style.
At the risk of over-promoting, I must say, we recently had a Retronauts episode where we ranked all the 3D Mario games. And I went with Super Mario 64 as my top because for me it's about the controls, and they made that Mario, and Mario plays that way, and almost every other 3D Mario game, and like you said, a lot of other 3D games oh, that's how it works, and that's just it works. So yeah, but then they they sort of
I think a lot of games after that though did play it safer with the controls. Like something like Banjo-Kazooie, I think, a lot of people are like, oh, Banjo-Kazooie, I think that's better than Mario 64. And don't get me wrong, Banjo-Kazooie's good, but it's kind of like a one and done because the core mechanics are fun for exploring that world and discovering the things. But the core mechanics of Mario 64 are just pure joy just to control. Even if you don't have a goal in the game that you're aiming for, just moving about, doing flips and wall jumps, and there's moves in it that are almost useless within the context of the game, like the slide kick thing. Who does that? I mean, maybe some speed. I don't know much about speedrunner strats. I mean, there's so much diversity to his moveset that there's just crazy things you could do with that. that, you know, then I think when they were designed later games, they're like, oh, is that move really useful? Let's cut that out. Like it feels like in general, as the games went forward, they culled a few things from his Mario 64 moveset, or took two things out and added one new thing, or, you know, it varies. But I will die on the hill that Super Mario 64 perfected 3D control, and everything has just been, you know, it's been refinement since, but I love how that game controls. It's so perfect to me.
I would argue this pick also includes Mario's ability to fall asleep when the control. When
Yes.
the item
Ooh,
cool.
Absolutely. Yes.
There you go.
One
There
of
you
the
go.
two cutest things you can do in Mario 64. The other being losing your hat on purpose, and then whenever you jump out of the painting after finishing collecting a star, Mario usually takes his hat off briefly. Instead,
Oh,
he'll
yes!
reach for his hat and then kind of look around like, oh, where'd it go?
Yep. So I guess that probably also means that my game is also kind of I focus on the controls, but I guess that means my game is kind of structured in probably a similar way. You probably have a hub area and different levels from there. So, you know, different sort of open levels. So sort of like Mario Odyssey. Think Mario Odyssey, but with Mario 64's controls, essentially, you know, different levels, but.
The only thing that surprises me about that pick is that you're limiting yourself to 3 camera angles. Though I will say, I do think I agree with you on Mario's control, actually. I think the way Mario feels in Super Mario 64 is beautiful. Like, it is nothing short of just beauty. It's like pure joy. I don't think adequately describes how nice it feels to control Mario in that game.
I would clarify, though, on the N64 controller.
Correct.
Because
Yes.
I have the 3D All-Stars port, and it's so Super Mario 64 is my favorite Mario game of all time. I did an episode of Side Quests about it. Like I have deep memories tied to it because it was also the game I got with my N64. But like playing the 3D All-Stars pack, the controls are so poorly ported that it doesn't feel like that anymore.
It's the best they've done, though, because
Right,
I with the Pro Controller at least. I don't know about the Joy-Cons, but with a Pro Controller, like I very carefully I did video clips where I saw like how much was he moving, how much I tilt the stick. If you play like with a classic controller on like the Wii or Wii U Virtual Console versions, he is running full speed at like a half tilt.
Yeah.
And I suspect a lot of people who don't like Super Mario 64, their experience was either with the analog stick sensitivity poorly translated to another controller, or they played with like a really bad condition N64 controller. And you know, if you take care of your stuff, N64 controllers still hold up.
Yeah.
You know?
I think N64 controllers are one of the most misunderstood controllers in like the gaming zeitgeist or gaming discussion online.
That's kind of the thing, is it? That's why they're weird. People are looking like, what do I do with this? That's the problem.
I'll say that just for the sake of it, I'll say that the controls, because of the controls of my game, you must play this game with the Nintendo Switch Online N64 controller. It comes bundled with it.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's move on over to our 4th pick. Diamond, you are actually getting the 4th pick, the 4th overall pick, and the 5th overall pick back to back. So you get 2 picks in a row. So what is your first of the 2 picks?
Well, it's interesting to see what people took first, what they considered the most important part of the game. And I don't want to sound superficial, but I feel like graphics are really big because Mario's done a lot of stuff over the years, and he's looked many different ways. But for me, my money, the best looking Mario game was indeed Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. So I want
good one.
I want my crayons. I want my crayons. I want my, scratchy visuals. So I want to pick the Super Mario 2 Yoshi's Island visuals for my top pick because that's what I want.
Snatched it right from underneath me.
I would love to see what proper. I mean, not that Yoshi's Island is. I mean, Yoshi's Island's an amazing game, but it is not like Super Mario gameplay. I would love to see like, you know, regular adult Mario like in that kind of graphic style. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I recently played through Yoshi's Island 2 for my own show, and as I was playing it, it came across my mind. I was like, you could very well play this like a regular Super Mario game, though Yoshi does have his own weight and heft to him, controls a little bit differently than Mario, of course. But I tried playing through many of the levels without using the egg tossing mechanic, and you can do it, but you're just kind of missing I know we're talking about graphics and visuals here, but I'm talking about gameplay, but you're kind of missing the point if you're not interacting with the stuff that's baked into the game. But
yeah,
so it would be a very differently designed game, I would imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to feel bad about going off on tangents either. One of the things I love about the draft episodes is that it's a really nice way to kind of spread a lot of love about a series as a whole. Like, because if when you try to talk about Mario, it's easier to, or Final Fantasy, as I've done with the drafts, like you're so hyper focused on one or two things, or maybe one aspect of each part of the series. Like maybe you'll talk about the stories of Final Fantasy or the enemies of Mario, but this is something where it kind of is all encompassing. So it allows a lot of divergence into different areas of a specific series. And I really enjoy that because you never know what everyone's going to draft. Everyone has a different take. So I never feel bad about going off on little tangents. Plus, it gives me a longer runtime, which makes the episode looks nice. So, but no, Diamond, your second pick for kicking off the second round, the first pick of the second round, aka the 5th overall pick. What do you got?
Well, I was worried that he might go early, but it seems like we've got a Sam Bowie situation here where everyone decided, I'll pick this guy, but you missed the Michael Jordan, the star, the real star of the Mario games. I'm picking Luigi. I want my Luigi.
Oh,
Damn
Your
it.
player 2?
I want Luigi.
Lock him down, I mean, honestly, if there was a player 1 choice, I would pick Luigi for player 1.
Same.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite Mario characters is Luigi. So well played.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, back when I was like 10 years old, like I asked my parents for Mario is Missing for my birthday because I saw it in Kmart, and I'm like, wait, because I didn't have a Super Nintendo yet, and I saw that there's a new Mario game on NES, and I'm like, and it stars Luigi, so I'm thinking like, oh, this is going to be like Super Mario World, but for my NES, and I can play as Luigi, and Luigi's better, and then it ended up being an educational geography game. So yes, I got suckered in. But yeah, that's the pull of Luigi for me.
How many of y'all dedicated a lot of time to the Year of Luigi back in 2012 or what was that?
It's 2013 officially, because what they're counting is the 1983 Mario Brothers, which is the first game that actually has a character named Luigi, even though there is another Mario in Donkey Kong Jr. who could arguably be Luigi, but no, in Mario Brothers he actually is standing there and he's called Luigi. So
yeah, I'm actually looking at my Year of Luigi pixel art Luigi poster from Club Nintendo right now. It is hanging in my house.
I am holding in my hands my Luigi Power Band, which is what I wear whenever I go to Universal Studios here in Japan, so I can jump up and punch blocks and as the superior Mario brother Luigi.
While I didn't have a Wii U at the time, so I couldn't play New Super Luigi U, I did buy Dark Moon the day it came out. I love the Luigi's Mansion franchise, and then I of course also bought Mario and Luigi Dream Team because I loved those Mario and Luigi games, mostly because they made Luigi such a fun and funny character in them. So yeah, definitely indulged in the Year of Luigi, but I wasn't able to play everything at the time because I wasn't one of the 5 people who had a Wii U.
Yeah. I was out of the Nintendo ecosystem between 2005 and 2017. So
all right, let's move it over to you for your second pick.
All right. I'm going to start digging into power-ups. And this is a tough one. I want to pick my flying power-up. Because I think that's essential. And I don't want to just pair the wing cap with Super Mario 64 gameplay because that's been done before. This is tough because my personal favorite flying power up is just the super leaf, the raccoon tail, Tanuki Mario, that's a little more elaborate and fun, but there's just something about that pure simplicity of just like Mario with a raccoon tail and like the ridiculousness of you're wagging this raccoon tail to fly. Like that's, I love that. I love everything about that. Super Mario Brothers 3 is my favorite of the 2D games. But that said, even though I think the raccoon tail is more aesthetically interesting, and in the 2D space, certainly you have greater control, but I think the cape is going to be more mechanically interesting to explore in Super Mario 64 style gameplay. I really don't know how you would pull that off. The whole thing where you can like billow the cape back and, that sort of, what's the term I'm looking for? Easy to use but difficult to master sorts of controls, with that, where you can really pull off this like long, almost forever glide if you use the mechanics just right. I think that would be really interesting to explore in a 3D space. So even though my heart says Raccoon Leaf, I think the better game design decision would be to take the cape into Mario 64 gameplay.
Off the board, arguably the most popular power up in the entire game, or the entire series, excuse me.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, that one game actually has much fewer power-ups to go around compared to Mario 3, which is one of the reasons I've always preferred Mario 3 over Mario World. But yeah, that I like the NES games much more than I like Super Mario World, which I think is a very uncommon opinion. I think most people consider Super Mario World the best of the 2D games, but so it feels a little weird to pick like the core exclusive power-up from Super Mario World over one of the other flying options. But I really do think that could be really... just the mechanics of that, I think, could be super interesting in Super Mario 64 gameplay.
I mean, thankfully, you don't have to actually design or code it. Because I remember,
exactly.
I believe one of the reasons they had a lot of the power ups in Mario 64 is limited. It's because they weren't quite sure how exactly to design around, design around that. Because how do you limit someone in like a 3D environment? That's because. It was a lot harder back then. That's why also the flying stages, when you have the flying cap, it's timed and you can only use it for a little bit. So that way you literally can't break the game logic too much type of thing.
Even things like the Fire Flower were kind of out of the series for a while there, right? Like, because they were afraid to give you like a permanent or a power up that was not time limited, right? Like that kind of thing. It was a while before that sort of thing really kind of came into the 3D series.
The wing cap doesn't even compare to the flower or the feather cape.
I mean,
they tried to like make it control similarly, but like it just I could never get the wing cap to work for the life of me.
I do love the wing cap. I mean, aesthetically, it's a little bit boring, I think, but I do love the mechanics of it. But I think the cape could be even better, so that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think the wing cap doesn't work as well because the cape, it is a little bit hard to master, but like in order to keep continuous flight with that, you just have to rock the D-pad back and forth from like not even like left to right. Like you just go
There's a
depending on
very
which direction-
satisfying rhythm to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a rhythm to it versus with the wing cap, you're like diving up and down and trying to keep the momentum going until the time runs out. And you're never quite sure how steep of a dive you have to do in order to like get the like finding that is a lot harder, like a lot harder of a point to make. It's a lot harder to fine tune that as a player, at least in my opinion, but I don't know about anybody else's experience. But, Keith, we're going to move it on over to you for your second overall pick.
All right. So I feel like I have to get this off the board. I'm feeling the pressure now. There's a couple of categories I'm looking at. I'm like, what do I take? So Diamond already took graphic and visuals from me. Gameplay controls, I think. All right. So
yeah, do you think your gameplay controls are going to still be around later, or do you have to take it now?
I think I will go with gameplay controls. And, you know, like I said, I'm going to primarily be favoring a lot of the older games. And if Try thinks Super Mario 64 is kind of the apex of 3D Mario controls, I'm going to have to say that Super Mario World is the apex of 2D Mario controls. I just love the way Super Mario World controls. And I know Super Mario Bros. 3 controls somewhat similar, but the processing power of the Super Nintendo, everything just feels so much smoother and faster with Super Mario World, where everything that came after it, like even, you know, the Super Mario 3D Land and World and the new Super Mario Brothers series and everything, like everything that's come after that just is kind of iterative of Super Mario World, it felt like. Whereas kind of, you know, the 3D games were kind of iterative of Super Mario 64. So yeah, Super Mario World just feels good to play.
Yeah, Super Mario World I revisited last year for the first time in a while. I used to play it every year for a long time, and then I hadn't for a while. And to cover it on for the milestone episodes of the sub-series I do Side Quests, me and my co-host will bring a guest on, and we'll do more of a roundtable discussion instead of a monologue. And we did one for Super Mario World, and it holds up. I played it in almost one sitting because it just moves so smoothly, and like there are some 2D side-scrolling platformers that don't hold up control-wise because of age or whatever else, but like Super Mario World, like it feels exactly like it did back in the day. No issues, no problems. Like when I died because I screwed up the jump, not because the controls are finicky. And I think you're absolutely right that it's definitely the milestone to which all other 2D Mario games, and like the only one I feel like that's come close to it control wise is Mario Brothers Wonder, with the same kind of like lightness to it, right? The airiness to it that game felt with its control. I feel in Wonder that I've seen in the other games, but not quite to the same extent.
Absolutely.
Well, Keith, I'm very excited to figure out what happens when you come to pitch your game, because I want to know how are you going to best use the L and R buttons to scroll the camera to the left or the right?
Well, I'm excited how the Master Sword's going to work in Super Mario World.
Yeah, right, exactly. Flying with it, like if you we
Much
can't
like
have the
Zelda
cape
2.
now. So yeah,
I mean, I guess the Master Sword's a power up in Mario and Mario Maker. I don't remember if I played much Mario Maker after they added that in, because that was like a later patch, right?
Yeah, it was when you could use your amiibo to turn Mario into other like Smash Brothers characters, essentially.
Oh, yeah, I do remember doing that a little bit. Yeah.
And the reason we didn't include the Mario Maker stuff as the main line, like you would have to flex it in, is just because you would have access to everything.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah,
it would
be cheating.
completely break the draft.
Yes.
But Matt, we're going to throw it back over to you. You get to close out round 2 and begin round 3, your second and third picks.
So this is tough. I like Keith. I'm feeling the pressure. Like my player 2 has already been taken, which kills me a little bit. But I don't regret my soundtrack choice. But I think I need to pick my graphics and visuals because I know this won't last long. And while I didn't get sucked into this game the same way other people did last year. I like it. It's a very good game, but it just didn't wow me in the way that previous entries in the 2D series. It is undeniable that one of the most beautiful Mario games to come out in a long time is Super Mario Brothers Wonder, and so I'm taking it as my graphics and visuals.
Damn you.
That was going to be my next pick.
Yeah, like the thing about Super Mario Brothers Wonder, whether you like it or not, is that the sprites have never ever looked so alive and full of life.
Yeah.
Like, I liked the new Super Mario Brothers games, especially the first one, being able to turn giant and all of that, but the art direction and the graphics of those games were kind of boilerplate, which was the point. They were trying to create a new version of Super Mario Brothers, right? It's in the name, and so I get it, but like, there's something like, whether you love or hate Wonder and how it plays, it is undeniable how gorgeous that game looks, especially on an OLED system like I have. Like, it is just one of the most beautiful looking Nintendo games, let alone Mario games, I think, ever. And so absolutely needed to snatch that for my graphics and visuals.
I think that is, we were talking so much about how beautiful Yoshi's Island is. I feel like Yoshi's Island was if you look from Super Mario Brothers 1, not so much the Lost Levels 2, but if you consider like US 2, 3, World, then Yoshi's Island, like every single one of those games looks wildly different. Yeah. And that was always, I think, a big part of the appeal, was the world being reimagined in these new art styles. And they just let that die with the new series. And Super Mario Brothers Wonder feels to me like the first 2D Mario game to continue that tradition of, really imaginative art and use of color and shading and stuff like that.
One thing I've always been impressed by the Mario series in general is just how many times it's able to reinvent itself. Like, you would think that at some point they would be running out of ideas for 2D or 3D platformers, but they
did for a little bit for 2D.
But like, even so, like you were mentioning, I forget if it was, I think it was you, Matt, mentioned it because it was the new Super Mario Bros. Or maybe it was you, Try. It was who mentioned it was boilerplate, the visuals.
It was me. Yeah.
It's a good way to put it.
It makes sense why the gameplay was a little bit like that too, because they were kind of they were, I think, actually on shout out to Retronauts. I think on Retronauts, I don't remember who said it, Diamond. It might have been Bob, but it was someone who mentioned that it was like them getting their training wheels back on. Like they were learning how to design in 2D again after they had been stuck in 3D for probably about a decade at that point. And so they were trying to shake off the cobwebs. And so that's why New Super Mario Bros. 2 is considered a lot better of a game than New Super Mario Bros. And maybe even New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Some people really like that one as well. But but even with that, I'm just consistently amazed by how they're able to find new ideas, and when and the fact that they could, I have not played Wonder yet just because I haven't been able to pick up a copy yet, but like no one has complained about Elephant Mario. They put an elephant into a Mario game and everyone's like, yeah, that works.
Yeah, let's do it. Yep,
it's believable.
Yeah, and really just shout out to the furries, right? Big win for them,
Yeah, seriously.
I'm happy for them.
I'm actually curious, when is this scheduled to go live?
This is scheduled to go live on February, whatever, 18th.
Okay, so by the time this is out, everyone will have seen the artwork for an upcoming Retronauts episode about Super Mario Wonder. And all I'm going to say is, I didn't draw it, but I'm saying you're welcome because it is fantastic.
Amazing. Love to hear it.
I've seen it. It's gorgeous.
Oh, I'm excited.
I really think it's interesting how a lot of the articles that were talking about Super Mario Brothers Wonder is how it's basically a spiritual successor to Super Mario World. When I feel like it has a lot more in common with Yoshi's Island, and I know Yoshi's Island is, a lot of people say it's not technically a Mario game. It's kind of a polarizing title in the franchise. But like, even when it comes down to like development, Yoshi's Island was at the tail end of the Super Nintendo. Super Mario Bros. Wonder came out the tail end of the Switch.
Yeah.
Back in 1995, Tezuka and the gang were basically throwing whatever they wanted at the wall with Yoshi's Island and just putting it out. And they basically did the same thing with Super Mario Brothers Wonder. It's a lot more of a spiritual successor to Yoshi's Island, in my opinion, than it is Super Mario World.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it might have been a Retronauts episode where this has always stuck with me, where someone said something to the effect of, you know, when they were developing Yoshi's Island, like they kind of knew like this, at least what it seemed to them it would be at the time, like this is our last chance to like really do like a, you know, bring everything to the table, you know, max budget for a 2D game. Like, let's just like put everything into this and make it as absolutely crazy as it can be. And so that was like kind of Nintendo, you know, Nintendo's internal development, like sort of farewell to 2D platforming, this grand farewell. And of course, luckily, you know, 2D gaming did come back, and 2D gaming came back for Mario, but it really did take until Super Mario Wonder for them to do something, especially since we're talking about graphics and visuals, to do something of the level of spectacle of Yoshi's Island in a 2D form.
And I almost wonder then if Mario Wonder is kind of like their version of a swan song, not for 2D game development, but like, or 2D Mario, but like for the Switch. You know, that was like, let's pack everything we can into this 2D Mario to send the Switch off, you know?
Yeah.
I could see that. All right, Matt, you still have your next pick. You are kicking off the third round here.
Yeah. And so, like, as things start to come together, again, there's really no right answer anymore, right? Like, things are going to start to go. And so I think I have to do gameplay and controls also, just so I know the vision of my game, right? Because I have the music and I have what it looks like. So I think the next thing is gameplay, and then I can pick up the other parts. And so for gameplay, this may be an upset or surprise to people, but I am picking Bowser's Fury.
Oh, good pick. Good pick.
Because Bowser's Fury, the fact that it was only 4.5 hours, because I took my time with it, it's really only like a 3-hour game. The fact that it wasn't a full like 10-hour Mario experience kills me, because it is one of, like, remember you were talking before about how Super Mario 64 is the best Mario's ever controlled? I say yes, and I agree, except Bowser's Fury, because with that world and game, like that way the game plays, this big open world that you can run around, that took me back to Mario 64 faster than Odyssey did. And
I agree with that, actually. Yeah.
And like, and also the gameplay mechanic of the kaiju battles, like, and that you can't really beat Bowser, though he won't be my villain necessarily. Like, I loved that way, and how you would have to go back to these different areas, but they were constantly changing based on the things you did and when you got the bells and all of that. And so like that kind of open space that doesn't feel so big that it's overwhelming, like, you know, the GTA size worlds that we get. Like, this was open world for Mario in a way that really worked, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's a thing that like Sonic has struggled with and a lot of other mascot characters, but Mario is like, all right, you want to do open world? We'll show you how to do open world, and like really did it in a way that felt open world for Mario. And if we just made it a little bigger and made the game a little longer, I think it would be incredible. And so that's kind of my pitch for the game that I'm concocting.
As much as I would like the next Mario game to control just like Super Mario 64, I think a more realistic thing to hope for is basically the game you're building right here, right now, right?
Yep.
Like that, I have always believed from, you know, the moment I played Bowser's Fury, I'm like, oh, okay, this is like an experiment. This is like what they wanted to build a miniature version of what they're thinking about making the next main 3D Mario game, and like see if this works and then build it out, because it works so well. I mean, I have a lot of issues with like the standard open world formula, especially more like Western developed open world formula games. I don't love, you know, the point A to point B, you know, busy work checklist type of thing. But Nintendo is one of the few companies that is like consistently made open worlds that are something that I love the idea of open worlds. Execution is the problem, and Nintendo has done so well with like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and you know, Bowser's Fury hints that they've got the right idea for doing the same for Mario. So I the game you're building very well could actually be the next Mario game. Seems likely to me anyway.
I wonder if the listeners will vote for that, see
guess
which way
we'll
they
have to
will end
see.
up voting. We'll have to see. Keith, we're throwing it back over to you, my friend. Your third pick.
So I'm going to go for graphics and visuals here, and we're going to keep the Bowser's Fury train rolling here because that is going to be my pick
Hell yeah.
for graphics visuals. Just because, we're talking about like peak 3D Mario, graphic fidelity. It looks so good. Odyssey, I have to wonder if they're using the same stuff that they used in Odyssey. I know there's, if you look at like a side-by-side comparison, I'm sure they're like a little bit different, but if I just pop in both of those games, I'm probably not going to notice it too much. And then even just as far as like the art direction goes, in Bowser's Fury, it's adorable. Everything is a cat. Who doesn't like a cat? Like, it's so cute. Like, everything has cat ears on it.
But
And
at the
so I
same
think-
time, it's like Super Dragon Ball Z with Kaiju Bowser.
It's like, and the coolest thing is like Bowser is a terrifying character, right? And in his early designs was made to look pretty scary and has kind of gotten a little cartoonified, but like
Right.
this version of Bowser is horrifying when
Absolutely,
he transforms,
yeah.
like absolutely intimidating and like gives the kaiju feel even more, right? Like has that Godzilla vibe because of how horrific he looks.
Well, there's the dark and looming threat of, I don't know if it has a name or anything, but like the goo or like the black ink
Yeah.
that kind of pollutes the little snow globe of a world that you're traversing. It's which could also make for a very interesting mechanic in the game that I'm building as well. So I feel like Bowser's Fury is a good pick for graphics visuals, even if this is going to be more or less a 2D Mario game. I'm not sure how well that translates, but just working with what I've got right now.
Well, oh wait, no, never mind. I was gonna say I thought it was funny that you and Matt swapped visuals and gameplay and graphics, but no, Matt has a Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I was gonna laugh at it like you took Mario World gameplay and Bowser's Fury graphics, and Matt took Bowser Fury gameplay and all over the damn place. Tribe, we're gonna throw it over to you for your third overall pick.
Well, since everyone is snatching up all of the best looking Mario games, I better. Well, I guess everyone's picked graphics and visuals, so it's not like I actually have to pick graphics and visuals next because no one else can pick it from that category anymore but me.
That is correct. You are in no danger of losing your pick for graphics
Yeah,
and visuals
so
anymore.
you know what? Maybe I will not do that.
Yep.
You know what? I am going to go for player 2, and I'm going to say Wario.
Oh my God.
And the reason is, Wario is kind of, I definitely think about, Super Mario canon and things like that more than any sane person should. When I was in college, I made and we're talking like 2005, 2006. I made like a 3D animated Mario fan film for my final media arts project in college. I had this whole grand story that I wanted to tell. And of course I would never have the time to do it. But there were most of the things I included in that were things that, were consistent with what you would call the Super Mario games, right? Wario has always kind of lived outside that. He's in Super Mario Land 2, but that's kind of the Game Boy games are a little off, right? They're a little different. And then he was a playable character in Super Mario 64 DS, but again, that game's kind of off. It's a little different. Wario has never really been part of what I would call the Super Mario canon. However, I think he deserves to be. I don't think he necessarily just has to be relegated to the multiplayer games or his own series. I would love to see what would happen if Mario or if Wario were actually accepted into the regular Super Mario cast as part of the 2D games and or the 3D games. I'm saying let's put Wario into Super Mario properly, keep him there. I don't know exactly what role he plays in this Super Mario 64-esque
Well, he's player
game.
2.
Yeah, he's player 2. He probably plays a big role in the story, so that could be entertaining as well.
Even though you stole the possibility of Wario being a cat in my game or whatever.
Oh, now I feel bad.
It will be interesting to see him put on a cape and try and fly around in your
Oh
game.
my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, he's worn a cape before. Don't forget about Garlic Man. Come on now.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's that like Master of Disguise game that I hear is terrible. I've never played it. I think he might wear a cape in that or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
he also
there is
has
a
like
flexible
finisher
option.
and Smash. So,
In doing research for my episode on Super Mario Kart 64, which of course has not come out yet, but actually it's already been recorded. Apparently Wario's voice was originally meant to be German.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wario was supposed to be German, and in the original like
that sounds very
Japanese,
entertaining.
yeah, but they didn't give any direction to Charles Martinet, and so when he saw Wario, he's like, "Oh, it's evil Mario," so he just did it like his like evil Italian, I guess, or whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wait a second.
I'll never forget that.
Wait a second.
that
Big
Wario
brain moment
Land.
here. Big brain moment. If Mario is Italian, reverse it. Germany is the opposite of Italy on the axis of evil.
There you
It's right
go.
above it. Flip the M upside down. W. What? It's right up there. The Weimar Republic, right? Yeah. There it is. Solved it.
I'll never forget that and I don't know who did the voice. Like,
The commercial.
I'm not sure if it might have been like after Charles Martinet started doing those like convention animatronic things, but. Like when the Wario Land commercial was on TV, do you all remember that?
Yeah.
It's like Wario like hypnotizing you,
Yep.
and like I remember like the line goes something, doesn't it go something like being good is bad and being bad is good and being greedy is very good or something like that.
Obey
Yeah.
Wario, destroy Mario.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Well, Diamond, you were throwing it over to you, and just a real quick shout out at this point, since Try did realize that he's the last one for graphics and visuals, you are the last one for gameplay and controls, so
Yes,
you don't
yes.
have to make that pick until whenever you damn well please. But
If
yeah.
you rewind the podcast, you can hear it's both a shock and a sigh of relief when Matt picked their gameplay stuff, because that means I can just leave mine for last. No one can take it, so I'm safe.
So we have no clue what your game is actually going to be until the last minute.
There we go. You can look forward to that. Look forward to that in about
Suspense.
12 is when it all comes together.
yeah. At our current pace, look for that about 2 hours from now, I guess. But in any case,
right.
it is time for me to pick my third pick. And I think it's time to flex. It's time to flex because I don't know if anyone's going to take this one, but I want it. So I'm taking it. I demand the Super Crown. I want a Super Crown in my game. That is, I guess that's officially from New Super Mario Brothers Deluxe. Yeah.
What-
Right? That's
Would
the
that
official
even be
title.
a flex? Like, I wonder if that's just like a valid. I don't see it on the list, but I
It's
wonder
not on the
if
list. That's why I'm flexing, right?
Well,
So-
you know what?
I feel like it should be though.
Yeah, I did not know. What is it? So I did not. It was so my
This
list
is the
was
Peachette crown.
That's
right?
right.
This is what turns Toadette into Peachette, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It basically, but the point is, it turns any, the idea in Super Mario Brothers Deluxe. Oh God, what the hell that name game was called? The point was at
New
the
Super
time,
Mario Brothers U Deluxe.
Yes. it turned Toadette into Peachette, which gave her Peach-like powers, but also made her distinctly feminine, which lit the internet on fire when they realized that anyone could have Super Crown. So I want the Super Crown in my game, so I'm taking it. And if it's on the list, I'm flexing. If you want to give it to me as a non-flex, I'll take it. But I want a Super Crown, so I'm picking it.
Does it do anything else outside of Toad? Or does it do anything? Does it turn anyone into kind of like a Peachette version of their character?
No,
No,
in
it's
that-
just Toadette.
Yeah, in that game, it only Toadette can sort of spawn it, and if someone else takes it, I think it just turns them like big size. Like it's like it's not worthless, but like it doesn't give them unique powers.
I think that we'll keep that as a flex because if it affected all of the characters in the game that you could play as, then I would be like, oh, how did I miss that? But since it's unique specifically to Toad and Toadette, I think that would be a flex.
Okay, I accept it. I'm flexing. I want it, so I have it. Thank you.
I was about to say now we're waiting to see who your player 2 is, but we already know it's Luigi.
Yeah, so Luigi is gonna Luigi-ette, I guess.
That's how I'm going with it.
And so with that one safely away, it's time to get something else that I feel like I wanted to have, and I don't want anyone else to take. So I want. I have some things here that I definitely want. What do I think people are going to take? I think. All right, I'm biased. I'm biased because I'm looking around. It's everywhere I see here, but I want for what's the term called? The levels, the settings, world themes, world themes. World themes. Yeah. I want Japan World. I want Japan World as featured in Super Mario Brothers, nice. Super Mario Odyssey, because I don't think I'm lying here when I say the Japanese people who make video games, they really like making Japanese areas. They really like a time where they get to show off attention to detail. Like, oh, I can reuse a building that is right down the street from my house, and it's 500 years old and it's gorgeous. So I want that kind of energy in this game, even though it's all being drawn in crayons. I want a beautiful crayon drawing of temples and shrines, and give it to me.
I was so surprised when I first went to the Koopa Kingdom in Super Mario Odyssey, and it's like, whoa, it's got this like Shogun Castle theme thing going on. Like that's never been Bowser's theme before, but I'm kind of into it. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because Bowser and the Koopas are like Kappas or Kappa or however you say it, essentially. So it makes sense. Like in retrospect, it's like, oh yeah, like it would make sense. That's never not how they portrayed it before, but I thought it was a cool twist that definitely worked in that game.
Oh man, I was not expecting a world theme to get taken so early. I was like, when no one was going for it, I'm like, oh, is this going to be last? So I'm happy that you snatched one up, Diamond.
Well, my gameplay is safe, so I'm allowed to pick and choose now.
Yeah. All right, Tri, back over to you. Your fourth pick.
All right, I think I'm going to go back to the Power Up Well. And I could see this equally being something no one would even be considering, or something that someone else is like, oh man, I want that. But especially because it's, I've got a 3D game going on here, Super Mario 64 style gameplay. I'm going to go with the Super Ball from Super Mario Land. Ooh. The not fireball. Everyone forgets, like, it's not a fireball. No, it's a ball, and it bounces. And I think that would be just like the cape. I would like to see what that could do in Super Mario 64 style 3D spaces. I feel like you could really do some interesting trick shots, angle it off the wall in an interesting way, and hit some enemies in some surprising ways that you might not expect, which is all part of why I love Super Mario 64 and its gameplay and controls so much, is just the unexpected ways you can do so many things in that game, the unexpected ways you can leap up somewhere. And I'm sure you could use the Super Ball in a lot of ways that would let you do unexpected things in that style of game.
Lest anyone forget, the Super Ball also collects coins.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah. Oh well, so it's a collection mechanic as well. So you could you could shoot it up high to they probably wouldn't let you like collect stars with it, but coins, why not?
It is going to be wild to see what the Super Ball would do in the 3D Mario space. Like I'm kind of excited for it. Keith, back to you now, or we're moving on up to you. Your fourth pick.
I feel like I have to take a pick in bosses. And, I sat here and I looked at this list, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like the Mario franchise isn't really known for its bosses.
No.
Nope.
But
No.
there's one game that really stood out to me where I was like, oh, every single boss in the game is one, memorable, and two, has a very interesting gimmick to it. And that's Super Mario World 2: Yoshi's Island.
I knew that's where you were going.
Mm-hmm.
I fully agree with you
Yeah.
on that pick, but I knew that was the most enviable pick for bosses, but I actively decide I was not going to take it for reasons I'll explain when I get to bosses.
I was going to say,
Sure,
I
I get it.
It is
actively...
it is the best pick. It is technically the best pick, but not my pick.
So I disagree. I think it's the second best pick. There is one other game that happens to be a favorite of mine that I think all of the bosses are also really interesting, but I will agree that I'd say 80% of the Mario games have Bowser as a boss, Bowser Jr. as a boss, and or some gimmick for that game a la Odyssey that also isn't very interesting. So I would agree that most of the Mario bosses are repetitive and uninteresting.
I mean, for the most part, I was the first 10 years of Mario is just you get to the boss, you jump on him 3 times.
Yeah.
And which is also kind of a bummer when I think about Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which has interesting gimmicks in the boss fight, but at the end of the day, you're just jumping on him 3 times. And I was like, okay.
That's Bowser Jr. again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was kind of tough for me to be like, I don't know. None of these boss fights are very good. But then I was like, oh yeah, Yoshi's Island. I mean, what other boss fight has it where you're throwing eggs at somebody until their pants fall off?
Let's also not forget the important sort of stage / boss where you go inside a frog, you throw it at their what is it, the uvula to make them,
I guess that's what. It is.
knock them out, and then you exit through their anus. Come on,
Yes. Yeah.
that's a boss battle. Or the moon boss battle. Oh god, yeah.
Oh yeah, the
believe me,
Raphael Raven fight.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I was tempted by this, and I opted not to take it. But yeah, they're so good.
It's a good choice.
Let's mention the final. Final gets Big Boss Baby. Oh jeez, the Big Boss Baby.
I mean, I've been thinking about the bosses of Mario for a while, and I remember really enjoying them for a while, but then I remembered it's not because of the older ones. A lot of the newer ones I find more interesting than a lot of the 3D ones have interesting patterns. I mean, you still jump on their head 3 times. The way to defeat them is almost always the same, but I'm with you on Yoshi's Island. Matt, your 4th and 5th pick back to back, closing out the 4th round and beginning the 5th.
So I think I will pick my bosses as well, which I'll be clear, these bosses are aesthetically interesting. They are still jump on them 3 times, but their mechanics are a little different, and more importantly, they just kind of all look hella cool. And so that is, I'm choosing the bosses of Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins.
Oh yeah, those are cool bosses.
You get the 3 little pigs, you get a space alien, you get Wario in 3 different forms, so I get to have Wario in my game. This could be like a return to revenge. They played enough tennis and kart and other things, and now he wants revenge. Who knows? But you have a zone where you fight the 3 little pigs. Is also you're climbing through a giant Mario mech. Not listed, by the way, in the worlds, I might add. Mario Zone is not there. Perhaps should be added. But yeah, I really like the bosses in Super, and also Super Mario. So Super Mario Land 6 golden coins I replayed last year. I was in the hospital and I had my Analog Pocket with me, and to pass the time and kind of soothe myself, I replayed one of my favorite games, which is 6 golden coins. And something people forget is you can go to any world in any order in that game. Any of them. The only thing you can't do is go to Wario, but you can get any of the 6 golden coins in any order. And so I really love this game, and it often gets overlooked. It's got some of the best power-ups in the franchise too. So, but it's some of my favorite bosses, and so I had to grab it before anyone else did, because again, there aren't a lot of unique bosses. It's mostly Koopa Kids or Bowser Jr. or both, and so wanted to snag that while it was still available.
Matt, I'm so relieved to hear the way you ended that sentence, because you said I was in the hospital and I had and you said analog. I was like, did you have your analog stick removed? Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Okay.
This escalated so fast. Oh my goodness. You're right though, man. The Super Mario Land 2, I beat it a year or two ago for an episode on my show. And I really, really liked it. And I'm trying to think why I didn't include the inside Mario world as like a world, just because I didn't think it was. I was trying to pick things that like span across multiple games.
Sure,
type
of course,
thing,
yeah, of course.
as opposed to appearing only in one. But I love it's not the wing cap. What's the cap with the little? There's wings on it, but it's not called the wing
It's
cap.
You have it listed. It's the carrot. The carrot gives you
the
bunny
carrot.
ears.
The bunny
I love
ears.
Yeah,
Totally makes sense with a bunny that can fly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or it can be an elephant. A bunny can fly. I don't see any
exactly.
fault with this logic.
It definitely makes more sense in Japan, where I think bunnies are seen as sort of not birds, but bird adjacent, and you even count them. You count them like you count birds in Japanese. I don't know why that is, but I think it's because they got those big ears, and sure, they could fly if they tried, right? If they really tried.
And hey, I mean, how else are they going to get up to the moon, right?
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. All right, Matt, your fifth pick now.
I think for my fifth pick, it's time to start digging into power-ups, right? We really need them. They are key to a Mario game. Mario games are known for their power-ups. And so it's funny. I picked the gameplay for Bowser's Fury. So at first I thought, well, I should get the Giga Bell, right? That makes sense. But I think there's a better catch-all, non-cat related thing that I could accentuate the kaiju kind of boss battle of a Bowser's Fury without using that power-up and make it a catch-all for everyone and any of the characters, which is, of course, I am talking about one of the best things to come out of New Super Mario Brothers, the Mega Mushroom.
Oh.
Ooh.
Okay.
Not sure if it was high on anyone's list, but I think it fits the vibe I'm going for at this point.
That could also pair just really interestingly with the level design as well. Like you could have these areas that are like absolutely gigantic and huge, and it might play very differently depending on whether you're regular Mario or Mega Mario, right?
Yeah.
All right, Mega Mushroom is off the board. Keith, back over to you for your fifth pick.
I feel like I have to snatch up my number one pick for soundtrack. And I'm surprised nobody has gone for it yet. I don't even know if it's on anybody's radar. And it's like, as far as soundtracks go too, I mean, it's another thing with the same thing with the bosses, right? It was like, I mean, I have a lot of nostalgia for the, first handful of Mario games. And I can, so I kind of have a bias towards that because I'm like, oh yeah, I can hum any of these tunes anytime and just conjure them up in my head. And I know exactly, what game they're from, what world they are, etc. And like everything past Super Mario Galaxy, I'm kind of like, you're starting to tread on that territory where everything is just like, I don't want to say generic, but for lack of a better term, generic orchestral music. I know like Super Mario Brothers Odyssey has like that one song in it.
Jump Up Superstar.
Right. And because I'm uncultured swine, I actually don't really like that song. But
You're allowed to be wrong. It's fine. It's fine.
But you're kind of treading in that territory where it's like, all right, I don't know any boss themes from Super Mario Odyssey. I don't know any boss themes from the 3D series. Anyway, all of this is to say, is I think one of like the most well-rounded soundtracks, and I always give this game a lot of guff, and I think a lot of people do, and I think a lot of it's deserved. But one of my like favorite soundtracks, and I think one that would really kind of fit with the theme that I'm going for here, is especially visually and graphically, is for Super Mario Sunshine.
Absolutely right. The best thing about that game is its soundtrack.
It's so like
the Delfino Plaza theme, I'm hearing it as we speak right now. Like so memorable.
Mm-hmm.
I actually used that theme in like a video project before the game even came out in the US because I was like, I don't know, I somehow stumbled across the track online and I'm like, this is so good, I have to use this in this video.
Yeah, there's like a lot of there's a lot more like synthy tracks in it than you would think. But it really does, and it has a lot of like really good reprisals of older Mario songs from their past.
You have like the acapella
And-
Mario thing.
That acapella jam. It's good.
Yeah.
They've reused that a bunch.
Totally.
And even just the way they reuse like I think it's like an accordion or what sounds like an accordion as an instrument throughout the soundtrack as well, and use it in different ways is really cool. Whereas it's like
I mean, that's the bulk of the plaza, right? The plaza is that's an accordion, right? I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something like that. Yeah. So I'm not a music major or anything like that, but just the way they keep using that throughout the soundtrack is really interesting too. So
I mean, the Super Mario Sunshine is really the only game on this list that has like other than maybe Bowser's Fury, I suppose, but aside from Bowser's Fury, well, okay, maybe Galaxy kind of has I was going to say it's the only game that kind of has like a really unified theme and aesthetic. Like it really thoroughly explores like, that sort of seaside sort of setting in a lot of different subsettings, right? And I've always kind of liked that sort of thing, like a really sort of unified setting rather than, this is getting into a bit of an aside, but like I've always really stood up for I Am Setsuna, because everyone complained like, oh, that game is it's all piano music and it's all snow. And I'm like, well, they really explored that one theme, I think, really well, like, with the way that music was tied to the setting and the visuals, as opposed to most video games where, you've got a grass level, you've got a desert level, you've got a volcano level, you've got an ice level. And it's oddly refreshing to not have that very predictable variety in a way. And it's even cooler, I think, when it creates this cohesive atmosphere through setting, visuals, and the soundtrack that, really makes that a unique pick.
That was a good pick, man. And as an aside on that, you mentioned the acapella version or one of y'all mentioned the acapella version of the Mario theme. I actually got to hear, it wasn't like an official Nintendo event or anything, but at a convention, like a Gamer Symphony Orchestra performed an acapella version of that live. It was actually at the convention I met Diamond at Retro World Expo last year.
Oh, who sang that? I don't remember.
It was the Norwalk Gamer Symphony Orchestra.
Oh.
They had a performance there where they had like a full orchestra, percussion and horns and woodwinds and all that stuff. But then there was a middle section of in the middle of the performance, or like middle of the concert, a bunch of them all got up and went onto the stage and they did an a cappella version, and they did the one from Super Mario Sunshine. They had a good selection of songs too. They did stuff from, actually kind of apropos for this, they did songs from Super Mario RPG. They did Chrono Trigger. They did what else? They didn't even stick to just like classics. They did some modern stuff that I was surprised by. I think they might have did Minecraft at one point. I don't remember. It was all over the place. It was really cool though. It was a really good performance. But all right, we're moving on to you, my friend. Your fifth pick.
All right. I think, let's see, we get 3 power-up picks. So I think I'm just going to close out my power-ups and go for the penguin suit, which is in a couple of the new Super Mario Brothers games. And it's one of those things that, like, much like the Tanuki suit or the Hammer Brothers suit in Mario 3, you're so excited to get it when you get it, and like inevitably, like you just like lose it not that long after, because it's cursed like that. But it's a lot of fun to use when you do have it. Very satisfying when you manage to keep it. And again, I'm just kind of trying to think about the diversity of power-ups in this game, and none of the 3 that I chose, the cape, the Super Ball, or the penguin suit, have like appeared together in the same game, and certainly none of them have appeared in a 3D game. And I think the penguin suit could be potentially really interesting in terms of like building momentum, how you can kind of slide about in it. I think there could definitely be a lot of potential with how you could play off of the water, if like a lot of water is integrated into some of the levels, and how you could just slide across a lot of surfaces. I think that could play really nicely with the momentum of Mario 64. And I guess they do have precedent for how penguins move in Mario 64 as it is.
I was just thinking about the penguin race.
That didn't even occur to me until just now. But yeah, that actually kind of makes it a bit of a fitting power up for that style of gameplay.
I was even thinking about, because they also have kind of similar movement style when you can surf on the shell across the level. Like, it's not exactly the same, but yeah, the penguin race and the shell surfing kind of has a similar vibe to it. But Diamond, closing out round 5 with you and beginning round 6.
Yes, so it's occurring to me that for my own peace of mind, I need to claim bosses and music. So I'm going to try a solid here, because that means Try doesn't have to worry about any bosses or music for the rest of the draft. But I want my bosses and I want music, so I better pick them now before Try gets them, frankly. So this is both despite Try and save Try. So here we go.
Thank you and curse you.
So music-wise, it's hard because so many Mario games kind of reuse the same themes. But I feel like top to bottom, one of the strongest Mario soundtracks ever, really, is 3D World. Super Mario 3D World has a fantastic soundtrack, and it is it's very big band. It's very lively. Yeah. I happened to be in Tokyo in 2015, and they had a 30th anniversary Mario concert, and it was just so much fun to see, having all those instruments on stage, and they were, had drums and horns and guitars, and it was just a delight to see in person. And I feel like it was a fun, even though ostensibly it was basically a launch event for Mario Maker, it was still a celebration of so much of Mario's past, and to have that music in front of me was just a lot of fun. So I want to take the 3D World music. And as far as bosses go, this is also a tricky one, because the bosses, they do have a few patterns. And I was nervous. When Matt talked about different bosses. Like, oh yeah, there are different bosses. But thankfully, these bosses have not been picked yet. I'm going to go with the Super Mario Brothers 2 bosses.
Oh, also a good pick.
Good pick, yeah.
An eclectic bunch. There are a bunch of weirdos who almost all of whom have never appeared again, and that's tragic because they're fun. They're a fun bunch. I guess they were in the cartoon show a bunch of times, but still.
Only one of them reappears often, and that would be, of course, the best trans Mario character ever, Birdo.
Well, isn't Mauser also quite a bit in the Super Show, if I recall?
Well, yes, but Birdo is in other games too.
True.
Yeah.
You're talking about other games. I thought you were talking about the Super Show.
I mean, Super Show I loved, and I love Mauser and Super Show, but yeah, Birdo appears in a ton of games.
Oh my God.
Super Mario RPG, which is
honestly,
really surprising.
Because she's in every stage, I didn't think of her as a boss, but she's the boss of most stages. You're right. I was thinking more of like the boss characters, like the flaming head and the giant crab, and of course,
Tri-Glide.
Of course,
Tri-Glide, yeah.
I think that brings up a good point, though, that do mini bosses count in the bosses category? And as the commissioner, if I could bang a gavel that wouldn't wake my kid up, I would say yes, it does count in the mini bosses.
That's good.
That means I get
Birdo. That means I get Birdo with that pick.
You do.
All right, Try, moving back over to you. Now that 2 more picks have been made, we are on to round 6. We have begun it in earnest. So Try your 6th pick.
All right, yeah. So let's see. I don't have to worry about graphics and visuals. I don't have to worry about soundtrack or bosses. I can save all that for later.
Man, you got it made in the shade with that. You have 3 categories you don't have to worry about at all.
Wow. So it almost seems like the main thing, or really only thing I have to get into to lay claim to anything are my world themes. So I think I'm going to start with, let's see, where's the list? I am going to do the airship theme. That was, I ain't gonna lie. I I can get kind of emotional about Mario games, it anything that just transports me back to being a kid, like almost gives me this like temporal whiplash that like brings tears to my eyes.
Mm-hmm. I feel that.
That can happen with like Kirby games, that really happened with like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and Mario games do it to me too. Just anything that just like when they really hit it in a way that's like, yes, this is how I envisioned it when I was a kid. And when like Bowser's ship comes in at the beginning of Super Mario Galaxy, like I had goosebumps and tears in my eyes, and they had that theme. It's like, yes, this is what Super Mario Brothers 3 seemed like, this big thing. Bowser seemed like his army was really threatening. And then it kind of became much more, I think, cartoonish, and I think Bowser kind of became a buffoon over the years, but he seemed threatening, like he and his army seemed threatening in the early games, especially Mario 3, and that airship theme, which is in many different games, and just the setting of the airships. And that the lead up to that as a boss fight has always just been great moments in both the 2D games and the 3D games for me.
Yeah, going back to what you said about nostalgia and kind of feeling like a kid again, I mean, that's how most of Super Mario Brothers Wonder made me feel. And when I saw that they brought back the airships in Wonder, I was like, man, this is really cool. As somebody who hasn't really played a lot of modern Mario games, it easily transported me back to, the days, sitting on the floor, staring up at a CRT that's maybe, a little bit too high up for me to have my neck cranked like that for hours on end. But, and playing those airship levels in Super Mario Brothers 3, it was a really cool feeling. It's a good pick.
And without going too far into it, because we're not even halfway through, and we've been going an hour and 40, or just about. I feel like every Mario fan has that one thing in a game. It could be, maybe it's for you. It's like what you just went into with the airship levels, but like I feel like there's just one thing that it just transports you back to being a kid. Like for me, it's actually, even though this is not like nostalgic for me per se, because the game came out after I was in college, but like the Mario Galaxy soundtrack, I adore the soundtrack of the game. It makes me feel like a kid again. It reminds me of why I love playing games, and I feel like Mario has that for people who are fans of Mario. I feel like there's one element, and it's personal to every person, unique to every individual, that is like their gateway back to feeling that same sense of like childhood wonder. No pun intended with Mario Wonder. But and that's why I love Mario games. That's why I'm happy to do the Super Mario Fantasy Draft. And since Keith, you just talked about some of your like nostalgia, it is actually your pick, your 6th overall pick. So moving on over to you, what's your 6th pick?
So I'm looking at this list of power-ups, and if I'm going to keep in theme with my gameplay here, as it, of course, being the Apex 2D platformer, I'm going to next pick the Ice Flower, which could have many different uses. Even just in speaking of platforming, I mean, you can create extra platforms using the Ice Flower. I don't remember if you can push objects once they're frozen. Objects or enemies. I don't remember if that's a mechanic in any of the games that has
honestly, but I don't see why you couldn't.
Yeah.
Imagine that they do.
I'm quick to say yes, but I'm also a Kirby sicko, and I know that's a mechanic.
Yeah.
When you free stuff and push it, and so I don't know if I'm conflating my two platformers.
SMB Wii, I think, had the flower. Which Ice Flower is it?
Just the Ice Flower.
Just the Ice Flower. Just like
because
it's been in several games. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, definitely the one in New Super Brothers Wii lets you pick up. You could pick up the ice cubes and throw them. I remember that.
Oh, okay. So they're like turtle shells.
Yeah.
I believe
I sound like an outsider saying turtle shells. Koopa shells. Oh gosh. I feel ashamed.
What a dork.
Yeah. I feel like one of those people back in the day when did you ever know anyone who called Koopa Troopas ducks?
Oh no.
Ducks.
Or
No.
like said that Mario spits fireballs?
Oh god, no.
I'm not one of those people,
ducks.
trust me.
Ducks.
What is Mario Karnov now? What's happening here?
Try walks around calling his PlayStation a Nintendo.
Oh god.
I got to rewind my Nintendo tapes.
Settle down, Grandpa.
Oh my. All right. In past fantasy drafts for the Final Fantasy stuff, you are allowed to specify, like if it appears in multiple entries, you are allowed to specify like which version you want. So if you want to go for the one where you can pick up and throw the ice blocks, there you go. You can specify that. Because I think that's only fair. If you're going with something across the series, then if I put the ice flower from every single iteration of that and the fire flower and that, there'd be no competition. Like once one was picked, and like, all right, I'll get the ice flower from the other Mario game. Like it would kind of ruin some of the heated debate that's going to be happening, or the heated competition. But all right, Matt, over to you, rounding out round 6.
So I think I'm going to pick my player 2, but I think I'm going to invoke the almighty flex.
Ooh,
and
baby,
pull out a character from a game we mentioned at the top of the show as an example, Super Mario RPG. But I am not picking the character everyone thinks, because I actually think this other character, I don't think is a better character, but is probably more my favorite because I like his journey. And so I am plucking Mallow from Super Mario RPG with my flex to be my player 2, because honestly, it's a crime that him and Geno haven't appeared in other games. But Mallow, like Geno's arc is I'm here to save the day, and then I save the day. Mallow actually like learns to be braver, learns that it's okay to cry, but you have to face your fears, finds his family. Just a really well-rounded and interesting Mario character. And also the idea of him running around in like a 3D open world with some of his abilities just really sounds awesome. So my flex pick for player 2 is Mallow from Super Mario RPG.
I always thought Mallow was very underrated as a character, and not just as a character, but also from a gameplay standpoint. I feel like, especially, the one thing I really like about the Mario RPG remake is that it actually lets you swap characters in and out of battle without wasting a turn. And I think that lets people use the characters that they may have not used as much in the original version. But I've always been an advocate for Geno and Mallow because, Bowser and Peach, I think, or Toadstool, as I should say, for the original, they make sense. I think your first time through the game is your main party. Bowser is obviously quite strong. Peach has by far the best healing, but as you learn the game better and, for replays, I always thought Geno's magic, especially with like the Geno whirl, could be much more powerful. And Mallow's magic is great, certainly a lot better than Bowser's. And his healing is good enough, if you play the game well. So I've kind of thought of like Geno and Mallow as like the pro mode characters. So I've always been an advocate for Mallow.
Diamond, was there something you were going to say?
I just wanted to point out that with this pick, everyone's picked a player 2 now except for Keith. So Keith, it's up to you to flex and bring Waluigi into this conversation.
Oh, it's true. It's the only way that the destined king.
I already used my
up his
flex.
flex. He used it on the Master Sword.
The thing about the player 2 category is I thought about Super Mario RPG as a flex, but then I was like, well, there's a lot of good characters in the Paper Mario series as well that I could flex in. And then it just became like this tumultuous thing of like, who the hell would I flex into this category? And it just was like, I'm racking my brain too much, so I'm just not going to use it in this. So that's how I worked it through.
Before we begin the next pick, I do think it's worth pointing out that we are halfway through the draft. We have completed 6 rounds. So far, like we've already been discussing, the only person who has not picked bosses, soundtrack, or graphics and visuals is Try. I believe then, Diamond, you are the only one who has not picked gameplay and controls, and Keith, you are the only one who has not picked player 2. Other than that, if I'm looking at my charts correctly, everything else is up for grabs with multiple extra pick, or multiple people are still have yet to pick something in that category. So let's move on now. We're turning the corner. We're going down. I guess it's not really the home stretch. There's still halfway to go, but we're going down the last half of this. So, Matt, kicking off round 7 and kicking off the second half of this draft.
So I haven't picked any world themes yet, and I was thinking about that, but also there are a lot of worlds, and like I'm not as look. We were talking about repeating. World themes are not usually that wholly original in Mario games. Some are, but for the most part, they are pretty repetitive. But I feel like power-ups are really key, and I just feel like I need to get my at least one of my last 2 power-ups. And this power-up is not only my favorite power-up in the game it's featured in, but is possibly one of my favorite power-ups in the history of Mario, and has, even though I won't have the music for it, one of the best power-up themes ever, because it's just like a ramped-up, like, techno version of an existing theme. And so, of course, I'm talking about the Metal Cap from Super Mario 64.
Yes.
And it's like superstar theme that's like got this funky kind of techno undertone to it. It's one of the coolest, like literally it's a power to just show off the cool graphics in the N64, but I don't care. Metal Mario has become one, like a recurring character and stuff, but like I love the Metal Cap. I just think it's so cool. You can walk on the bottom of water, and this was before Ocarina of Time did that, which you also could walk on with the iron boots. I think they were iron boots. But yeah, I love this power up. It's cool, and I think there's something about like a metal kaiju Mario fighting like a kaiju Wario, I guess is where we're going with my bosses. But I love that idea. So
kaiju Wario, man, wow.
Yeah,
that would be insane to see.
I mean, it sounds like his game is working up to that. So there you go.
All right, Keith, your 7th round pick.
What do we do? I think I'm still thinking about my power-ups. I haven't quite nailed that down yet. So I'm going to go with, I don't know. Let's go with player 2. And, oh boy. I don't know. Screw it. Peach.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Why not?
Peach is, even like, if she were to retain a lot of the I guess, quote unquote, natural powers that she had in SMB2 USA, that would be good enough for me. But, combined with the power ups that she'll probably use in the game that I'm building, she's just all around a great character, and it's, well, I wouldn't say an underutilized character, not these days at least, but was for quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting a whole ass game with just her, which I'm so excited for. And like, won't be a game where you control her with her emotions.
Yep.
Lord knows they didn't think that one through.
Right? Yeah.
The game is actually quite fun, but like, that whole thing was just awful. But yeah, Peach is undeniably the best character in Super Mario Brothers 2 USA. Like, there's no argument.
And she won't be using a frying pan as a weapon either.
I was actively wondering if anyone might flex in Super Princess Peach for the gameplay style, and then you've got Mario's emotions.
That I would love. Let's do it. Make Mario cry.
The whole game is about Mario coming to grips with toxic masculinity.
Yeah, let's do it.
Honestly, I would kind of love to see that. Like,
I mean, hey, I would buy it. I can't deny I would buy it.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of games. There's not a lot of opportunities in the series where like Mario and Peach are working together towards a common goal or
Yeah,
anything
is that
like that.
really ever happened where it's like
I mean,
them
the
as
Super
a
Mario Brothers games, like you can beat Peach and Mario at the same time.
right, but like
And
where
Wonder
it's
also.
Yeah, but the story wise,
just them like on an adventure together, like that's actually kind of a dynamic that's never really been explored. Like aside
because
from
he's always
maybe the
rescuing
movie, I
her.
guess, to an extent.
He's always rescuing her, but it's also kind of like, but why? I mean, we know why, but like, what's the relationship there? Like, was there ever a relationship there? I'm not saying Mario isn't known for its deep stories or anything, but you could build upon that.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, there's definitely at least a foundation there, and they've at least started to. I mean, does Peach get rescued in Wonder, or
Peach is with you.
Yeah,
You're stopping Mario. You're stopping Bowser, the spaceship, from destroying the world or whatever.
So yeah, they're finally starting to get away from that old trope. Thankfully,
I swear to Christ, if we're rescuing Mario in the Peach game, I'm gonna lose it. Like, leave Mario alone. Luigi rescued him. Leave it alone.
That's the thing. Like, she doesn't have her own agency. She's just kind of there for the adventure,
Yeah. Let Peach rescue someone else or a whole other kingdom or something. Leave Mario out of it.
That would be.
It's kind of interesting
cool.
too. Like, did you all see there was like an edit that they made to the box art for Princess Peach Showtime. Like when it was first showed off, like she kind of had like her normal, just like generic Princess Peach smile on it, and then like a later version of that box art came up and it looks exactly the same, but she's kind of got like a little bit more of like a self-assured sort of mischievous smirk on it, like a little more in line
scowling
with like the movie. So it's kind of interesting.
Oh.
I'm kind of looking forward to the new. Not kind of. I am looking forward to the new Peach game because I did enjoy Super Princess Peach, and as much as there's issues as we've discussed, that's putting it lightly. I would like to see what they do with a Princess Peach specific game because I like the gameplay. Just obviously, if it wasn't based around emotions, if it could have been anything else, it just anyway. All right, try your 7th round pick.
All right. I was tempted to do my flex for the next one, but I think I'll save it just another round and do one of the world themes that is on the list, which is the big/oversized world.
Yeah,
I don't know if that I don't know if it's just me, like I don't know if that was at risk of being claimed by anyone else, but like that is always like in any game, whether it's an 8-bit game or a 3D game, like that's always like a wow moment, right?
It was my first choice. It's the best world in what is it, Mario 3? Like,
yeah.
It's the best world in that whole game.
Come to think of it, I've kind of got a Mario 3 theme going on. I mean, like I say, Mario 3 is my favorite of the 2D games, so I've got a Mario 3 theme going on here. But yeah, it's just. There's so many interesting ways you could play with it. And sure, it has been done already in Mario 64 style gameplay. And sure, that level, Tiny Huge Island, was actually revisited in, I think, Super Mario Galaxy 2? Was it Galaxy 2? I think it was Galaxy 2.
I don't remember.
It has like a throwback galaxy or something, and it's like Tiny Huge Island, I want to say. So yeah, that's been revisited even in the 3D games, but I love that theme. There's so many fun things that you can play around with that concept. It's always a spectacle. It's always just fun to see how those things look in a different size. So yeah, for sure, that's gonna be my second world pick.
I feel like everyone, a lot of Mario fans really like the big oversized levels, like just in general. Like it's always a popular pick. Whenever people talk about Mario 3, like you mentioned, like I feel like that's such a memorable thing. But anyway,
yeah.
Diamond, closing out round 7 and beginning round 8, we're throwing it over to you.
Well, I feel like I better take another power up before someone else claims one. And I feel like it's kind of surprising no one has claimed this as a power-up, considering how often we've mentioned this power up, and that's Yoshi. I would like a Yoshi power up because that's fun. That's a fun thing to have, and it gives you new abilities, and it gives you the potential to have, you know, Yoshi time and not Yoshi time, and what does Yoshi do that the other people don't do? So I want the power up that is Yoshi.
That's also simultaneously a soundtrack modifier.
Yeah, in most cases, yes. Now,
Bonk goes to 3D World.
And a game mechanic, because you can do the pit jump where you sacrifice him
for
your survival. required in some of the games.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do have another power-up in mind, but most people have picked most of their pops already, so I think I can leave one of them off the table for now, and I will go with a world theme, which, again, has come up multiple times, but I don't want to let it go, is castles. Castles, towers, that sort of stuff. It's always good to have, you know, regular stage, and then you go somewhere and, oh, this place is dark. Oh, this place is kind of spooky. I shouldn't be here, but I gotta be here because I got someone's butt to kick. So, yeah. So Yoshi and Castle, my back-to-back picks there.
I do find it funny if you think about the logistics of what's happening right now is that no one else's games can have a castle or a fortress in their in their game. There is no Bowser's Castle in anyone else's game but Diamonds.
I mean, there are several Mario games that don't have Bowser's Castle in it, so you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it did have. Oh, I mean, I guess the one I was thinking of was 6 golden coins, and that has Wario's Castle. So same thing, I guess. But you know what I mean.
Well, Try is an airship, so Try is close. I don't know what. We'll see what Keith and Matt have in mind for their final levels, but.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you could always have just Bowser chilling in a spa, like in Hot
Tub Bowser.
I would honestly, let's do it. All right, Try. Over to you. Your 8th round pick.
All right, I'm going to break out my flex.
Oh man, I think you're the last person to break out the flex. So flex, my friend.
This follows up on Matt's pick of Malo as player 2. I'm going to do for a world theme. This is arguably, well, I've actually been thinking about what exact, because I wanted to do a world pick for my flex, and I wanted to do something from Super Mario RPG. And it would definitely be cheating to just say, I want a whole world that's the entire world of Super Mario RPG, which I would love. Like, I've always wanted that world to be revisited because
it's so
that was,
cool. I love the visuals of it.
It was such an early version of displaying Mario's world in higher fidelity and fleshing out what felt like a very all-encompassing world. And, you know, it introduced characters like the mole people and, you know, other things that we've never seen again. And I was thinking, like, what specifically would I take from Super Mario RPG? Because I knew I wanted to take something from Super Mario RPG for my world. And the thing that I kind of came to first was like Smithy's world, like the weapon dimension.
Yeah.
But because it'd be like, well, it'd be cool to like fight some of Smithy's weapons, but then that might kind of conflict with like a choice of bosses for the game. And also, you know, it's maybe a little bit redundant with the airship and tanks theme that I have anyway. Something that I think would actually be a lot more impactful than visiting Smithy's world in a 3D platformer. I got kind of excited in Super Mario Odyssey when you get, I want to say it's the first Bowser fight in that game. You get, I think they call it the Cloud Kingdom or the Nimbus Kingdom or something like that.
I think it's Cloud Kingdom.
And I got very excited for a second. I'm like, oh my gosh, are the Malo people going to be here? I'm like, I would just die in a puddle of happy tears. Just like Malo. If that happened. And then it just turns out to be a boss arena. There's no like, you know, you've all got all these unique, different types of people that live in all of these varied kingdoms across Super Mario Odyssey there's no NPCs.
Yeah,
like
to
there's
call it
no
a kingdom is not correct.
there's no cloud people.
Yeah.
So I'm going to flex in the Nimbus Land or Nimbus Kingdom. I think it's called Nimbus Land.
Nimbus Land.
It's
I think.
Nimbus
Nimbus
Land,
Land, Malo's kingdom. I would like for Malo's people to be established as like a firm part of like Super Mario canon outside of Super Mario RPG. I love how those cloud people look. I mean, really, they're just kind of a extension of how clouds have always looked in Mario, with the faces and stuff like that, but made them, actual people. And I always thought that was interesting. I don't, you could have the Nimbus Land castle, you could have, some sort of level that takes place in the skies there. Could possibly be some sort of connection to the airship levels there up in the clouds. But I think that would not only be, a fun place to explore, and but it would also kind of add a new element that I would like to see brought out of the RPGs and into the main platforming series. I really want to see those Nimbus Land people again. I love them.
I like that pick a lot, mainly because from when I played Super Mario RPG, I really enjoyed Nimbus, like the visuals of Nimbus Land a lot.
Mhm.
I don't know what it was. I also just like the idea that like you climb up a beanstalk or like a plant to get to
very
it.
Traditional Mario sort of thing. And also in the remake, I feel like the visuals of Nimbus Land itself were probably actually what translated the best from the original 2D renders that were put into the Super Nintendo game. The retranslation of that into 3D polygons, I feel like was actually kind of the most successful visual aspect of the remake. That kind of also leads me to believe it could work very well in a 3D game.
I get you.
What is the biology of the Nimbus people? Like,
I don't
unclear at best.
I don't
do they have
think,
intestines? And
I don't
bones or anything.
I think they're just clouds with arms that sit on top of like magically controlled bodies.
Like they have clothes, so they're not like things can't pass through them.
But when Malo like casts his spells, he like raises up off of his pants, right? But so I mean maybe there is like a body down there that like just can separate. I don't know. And there's also the question of like what the heck is Valentina? Is she a cloud person too, but just like super skinny or something? Like what?
I think she was an interloper. I don't think she's a native cloud person personally, but
what is she then?
Try was just as fooled by Valentina as the Nimbus people were.
I mean, look just like them.
Well, I mean, did anyone here not think Valentina was like a bird? Like the bird on her head was her until you actually get into the fight with her and you see, oh, there's like a face under the bird.
I don't know that I thought the bird was her, but I was curious why her hair was a bird.
The mysteries of Mario that we may never understand. All right, Keith, let's move it on over to you, your 8th round pick.
So I feel like I got to start cleaning up world themes here. And I'm going to go with space, the space cosmic galaxy theme here.
Good one.
I think that could translate very well with the visual style that I'm going for the game. And there's a lot that you can do with a lot of the space and cosmic themes in the games. I mean, we brought up Super Mario Land 2 earlier, which has a very memorable space level in it. A couple of them, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And even the I think the original Super Mario Land also has a space level. You're flying a spaceship in it. Because I think
it's like a side scroll. Isn't it a shmup?
It's a shmup.
Yeah, it's a shmup section.
Yeah,
which is really weird. So I think I personally haven't played the Galaxy games. I've seen them, just watching Let's Plays and stuff like that. And so you do a lot of interesting stuff with that, of course. How that stuff would translate to 2D. Not completely sure. I mean, Yoshi's Island kind of did it. I don't know if there's any 2D space themes outside of the Game Boy games.
Outside of the Game Boy games, I don't think so. Not that I recall.
Well, I'm snatching it up. That's I'm going for that. I'm going for a space and a cosmic theme here.
That's a good
For at least one of my themes here.
Out of the last 5 picks, 4 of them have been world themes, so people are jumping to them. Matt, you're up to close out round 8 and begin round 9.
I mean, I guess I should jump on the world theme train since I've also been holding off on that. And I think I'm going to start with my boss world because there's only one other thing on this list that I think would make for a good boss world. And surprisingly, it only shows up in one Mario game that I can recall, and that's Darkland, which is the final world of Mario 3. And incredibly ominous. I remember being terrified of it as a kid. Like, it just had this ominous music and had all of the different, like, multiple ships and tanks and other stuff. And so I'm taking Darkland, which will be the boss world of my game. And then I think for my follow-up pick after that, to keep us moving, I'm going to pick my final power-up.
Okay.
And it's tough because there's still a lot of really great power-ups. But, I think if I'm going to choose a power-up that, like, sticks with the original vibe of Bowser's Fury, but maybe isn't quite a cat because I do want to change it up. I'm going to actually take something we talked about a little bit earlier, but nobody actually took, which is one of my other favorite power-ups from the world of Mario, which is the Tanuki suit, which until very recently we never saw again. Until 3D World, and 3D Land, we didn't see it again for such a long time, but it's my favorite Mario 3 power-up. And so I'm going to choose, instead of turning into a giant cat to fight a kaiju Wario, you're going to turn into a giant Tanuki, which I think is still the same vibe, but you can also turn into like a giant statue, which would be
and now we get to see Tanuki Malo.
Yeah, that's
Yo,
now you can see Tanuki Malo. Yeah.
Metal Cat Malo, Mega Mushroom Malo.
Yeah. Some good stuff.
I do think it's worth mentioning, too, because I forgot to mention at the top of the draft that included in all the power-ups, if I remember correctly, I'm going to double check to make sure I'm not going crazy, but you are guaranteed to get the normal like mushroom that like makes you grow.
Oh, of course.
I'm
Correct.
pretty sure I'm like
if it's part of your gameplay, like if I wanted Super Mushrooms to be in Super Mario 64 style gameplay, I would have had to have specified.
Yeah.
Super Mushrooms are like such an integral part of
exactly
the side-scrolling gameplay that like there's no reason for it to be a pick there.
And that's why like Fire Flower was on the list, so no one else. I know Fire Flower is a super common power up, but like the Super Mushroom is so integral to how Mario operates. That would almost feel like you're completely taking away a gameplay mechanic, or like a core gameplay mechanic, as opposed to just something that changes from game to game type of thing. And that's also why if you chose Super Mario Bros. Wonder style of gameplay, the Wonder Flower does get included with it because it's so integral to the game Super Mario Wonder.
For sure, yeah.
Stuff like that. And I think same with Mario Odyssey and Cappy. Like you can't like that like to get the Super Mario Odyssey gameplay but not have Cappy be available to you would just be silly. But anyway, all right, let's move on. We are moving back over to you, Keith. Let's hear your 9th round pick.
So I'm going for another world theme here. And since I'm going for, as far as gameplay goes, just pure platforming fun, I've got to have like a mountain cliff rock theme.
Oh,
yeah.
I think about even just like Mario 64, there's that one stage I don't recall.
Tall Mountain.
Tall Mountain, yeah. Which can have some like really difficult stars to grab on that particular stage. But man, do I love exploring that mountain. And there's so many little secrets like tucked away in that thing. And Mario World doesn't have a mountain stage per se, but there's I think they call it like Donut Island or something like that towards the end of the game, where it has a lot of like these like these jagged
Choco Island?
Well, it's
Choco Island,
Choco
maybe?
Melon. Yeah, it's
Or, yeah,
Choco
yeah.
Melon.
Vanilla Dome.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Vanilla Dome. Yeah, there you go.
And no, I was thinking about Choco Mountain because it has like these sheer like platforms that jut out of the geometry there, and Mario can like slip and slide all over them, platform all over them, and it makes for some really challenging and can make for some really interesting and challenging gameplay as far as a platforming perspective goes.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but whenever I just like, if I'm just like booting up Mario 64 and I just like, I want to capture like some gameplay footage for a video real quick, like for some reason I gravitate toward Tall Mountain for whatever reason. Like that's just like where I go, just because there is a lot of fun platforming to be had there. I think like a lot of the enemy placement is really good. There's just you can get a lot of good momentum jumping off of enemies and doing some cool long jumps. It is good platforming there.
I think that's a lot of to what you were saying earlier about the mechanics of that game, where you can really bust out some of the more interesting stuff and get a lot of usefulness out of it.
But all right, Try, let's move on over to your 9th round pick.
Well, I think I'm going to close out my worlds, my 4th world pick.
Directly in a row, too.
Well, yeah. Because I think this is the last one that there's any risk of anyone claiming out from under me. And, sticking with the Mario 3 theme of a lot of the things, I'm going to go with Pipeland. I always loved the vibe of World 7 and Mario 3. I know I don't necessarily get like the world map music with it if I don't pick the Mario 3 soundtrack, but I always just loved it. It just kind of had this kind of cool, mysterious vibe to it. The maze elements I could see as being maybe a turnoff for some people, but there could there's a lot of really interesting vertical levels in Pipeland as well, which I think could be interesting with the platforming mechanics, and you could create some interesting mazes, I think, for hiding some stars or other items with that. But mostly it's the vibe. I like the vibe of Pipeland for some reason.
I wonder how that's going to look in your 3D Super Mario 64 space. Like, that's going to be some wild 3D platforming.
Yeah, I mean, in actual like Mario 64 graphics, like you wouldn't actually see like a lot of pipes all around the environment. But I haven't picked my graphics yet, so.
It's wild to me that you are so far into your picks and you don't have graphics or soundtrack.
Well, everyone saved me from having to worry about it.
Right, but it's just wild to me trying to imagine a Mario game without those things, right? Because they're so integral, and it's like my brain is just going, what does it mean? What does this game look like?
David, you were going to say something too.
I just want to say, and I'm dropping a link in chat in case anyone didn't see it. I hope everyone saw this on going around Twitter today, that someone pointed out, and I never noticed this before, but the layout of World 7 in Super Mario Bros. 3, they're shaped like pipes.
3 pipes. I think I've seen that before, and I totally forgot about it.
I never noticed it until this person shared it on Twitter. I was like, oh my God, I've never seen it.
That's really cool. They do a lot of cool things with the layout of the actual land throughout the game. Like World 3 has a portion of it that's like Japan and stuff like that.
That's right, and the castle's in Kyoto.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, speaking of castles, the last pick you made, Diamond, was your castles/fortress for your world theme number 2, and you are up again for your 9th pick and 10th pick.
So I think I'm going to close out my world themes here, because why not? And I think if you got castles and you got fortresses and you've got Mario, I feel like you might as well get some mythological things going on too. So I've actually been trying to figure out because it's separate than castles and fortress. So what are we talking about? Does that mean like, are we talking like dragons? Because I like dragons. Or
I think, I forget, Try, when we created this, were we thinking of like the one from Super Mario Odyssey with the dragon in it? That one random level where you have to fight a dragon and you like put stuff on its head.
Well, I mean, there's that, and then there's also like stuff like Super Mario Land, where it's kind of got a lot of more exotic sorts of areas.
Yes.
Like you've got like the Sphinx type of enemies and like the sort of
the China
pyramid
zone.
themed levels, and you've also got like the Moai heads and
Moai,
crazy,
yeah.
crazy stuff
I will
like
take
that.
Moai. If Moai are mythological, I absolutely want Moai. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think that's what we were going for.
And my last one also doesn't really follow any theme here, but I think it's just, if we got castles and fortresses and Japan world, I feel like, well, then you gotta have food. We gotta have food world, especially with crayon drawings. So crayon food,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man.
crayon
Yeah.
food would be the best choice there.
Food, sweets, and candy. That one was like the one that popped in my mind the most is from Odyssey when
Yes.
you go to, like
Yeah.
I love that place. That was
It's
so
such a
fun.
cool world. Yeah, just the
Mhm.
design of it. Yeah, is really
Soup Kingdom.
really
Yeah, soup
Soup Kingdom.
with nothing but sweets. I didn't even put that together. Oh my god! All right, wow. So a lot of world themes have been like the last. I figured it was going to come all at the end, but like pretty much the mid portion of this draft has been nothing but world themes. But all right, Keith, back to you. You have. Or sorry, I'm sorry. Try back to you. You have rounded out your world themes, and now we can finally learn the long-awaited bit of what is your game going to either look like, sound like, or who are your bosses in the game.
Oh, all right. I believe I will finally go with graphics. Super Mario Wonder was already taken. It would have been really interesting to see what that visual style would be like
In Mario 64.
with Mario 64 gameplay.
3 angles.
You know, and at the same time, you know, you could also say it would be interesting to see like what would that gameplay be like with like 8-bit graphics or something. That could be interesting. But ultimately, like, I just want to see a new game that plays just like Super Mario 64. That game is not Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey is a great game that does follow up in a lot of ways from Mario 64, but it's its own thing that is fantastic and wonderful. But ultimately, I just want a brand spanking new that looks like the newest, most up to date, most technically advanced Mario game, except it plays just like Super Mario 64. So without Super Mario Brothers Wonder on the table or Bowser's Fury on the table, I will take Super Mario Odyssey for my graphics.
Good choice. It's a good looking
yeah.
game.
Which I
Yeah.
think also, you know, kind of comes along with a lot of very I mean, you were just talking about the food realm, you know, the food world theme and that game like that. I just remember the colors of the food themed world in Super Mario Odyssey. I don't remember what it was, the Food Kingdom, or I don't remember what it was called.
The Luncheon Kingdom? I
That
think it was
Luncheon
called.
Kingdom, yeah.
That seems. I just remember the colors in that level
Yeah.
were just like so eye popping. Like it looked great. The other thing I love about it is, and I mentioned this before, like each kingdom has their own unique residents that are so different looking from any kinds of creatures or beings or people that we've seen in any other Mario game, down to the you know, of course, New Donk City is not in my game, but you know, I love how like the regular looking people are just like ultimately this weird race of creatures, just anyone else that like has their own like you know, mumbo jumbo language and stuff. You know, so I love the varied visual styles in that game and the varied peoples that go with it. And it's just, you know, it is probably the most technically advanced, visually attractive 3D game, I would say. I mean, when you have Bowser's Fury, there's definitely, it's got a lot of really cool things going on with like the cat themes and everything, but it definitely had to take some technical concessions for being this open world that it is, right? So I think Mario Odyssey still one-ups it in like the, just the visually high-tech department.
I will say, just thinking about this, if you're going to have Super Mario Odyssey graphics and visuals, you didn't have the world, but if there's a luncheon theme, imagine Wario in Super Mario Odyssey in the Luncheon Kingdom.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
There would have to be like a garlic eating mini game or something.
I want to see it. Nintendo, do it. Copyright the 5 of us. All right, Keith, you're up next. Your 10th round pick.
So we're sticking with worlds here, world themes, and I've got somebody brought up boss levels earlier. It might have been Matt.
Mm-hmm.
With the visual style of Bowser's Fury, that game can look pretty menacing at times, and I feel like to match that, I would have to pick the pirate ship warship theme.
Ooh.
Not exactly, the airship or anything like that, but it comes pretty darn close. And yeah, I feel like that could be a very, like I said, menacing addition to a game that would be mostly 2D.
I like it. All right, Matt, closing out round 10, beginning round 11.
Yep, all I've got is world themes left. And so
oh wow.
I picked the boss theme, world theme already, and so I think I'll pick something a little brighter and then follow it up with something darker again. But I think I really have to there are a lot of really cool, bright areas and worlds, but I think there's just something like very specifically unique about how Mario does like a tropical theme or a beach theme. I think about Odyssey, I think about Sunshine, I think about 64, and so I'm gonna have to choose for like my first level essentially a beach island tropical theme instead of going with the typical grassland theme. We're gonna go with a beach island tropical theme for my opening world. And then to follow it up, I talked about this at length earlier, but like some of the haunted and ghost houses, like the haunted stuff that like when Mario wants to be scary, like I still get scars from the piano in Super Mario 64.
Yes.
Like still a jump scare. Even when you see it coming, it's still a jump scare. So I'm taking the haunted ghost spooky theme. I don't know if it's going to be like a ghost houses or something like a giant mansion or what, but like going for that spooky vibe for one of my second to last world theme pick.
I have to ask Matt, if you're doing a beach island tropical theme at any point, does that mean we're going to see Mario's nipples in your game?
Yes, absolutely.
Diamond asking the hard-hitting questions. No pun intended with the hard nipples.
It is required.
It's interesting here. You look at the world themes list and it seems like, there's plenty to choose from. But once everyone started really narrowing in on those world themes towards the end, most of this list is gone, so it really is actually, it's a more competitive category than you think.
Yeah. Well, it just took us a while to get there too, because it's obviously not the number one choice, but they're important nonetheless.
They are. And it's one of those categories where it's like, well, there's always going to be good stuff to choose from, but it is actually a pretty competitive category.
Well, that's why the pool for the world themes was a little bit lower. Like that's also why there's 3 power-ups too, because eventually like there's so many power-ups in the series. Like I can't just make you choose only one, because that would be pretty insane. But I feel like when you limit the pool, it makes people compete for all the different options. I think I've said it a whole bunch of times. And now, real quick, I have to shout out something you mentioned, Matt. The fucking piano from Super Mario 64, because I did an episode of my show years ago. I want to say like 2020. It was like top 10 scariest moments in non-horror games. And that was on, I don't remember where it ranked, but it was on that list. Yep. That scared the shit out of me and still does.
It's terrifying. Like, and it's designed to be a jump scare. Like, you walk into that room and it'll just like the loudest noise you've ever heard. Yeah, it's fascinating because they don't really do that in a ton of Mario games. Mario games, I would say Odyssey gets a little spooky and weird sometimes, but like the legit jump scare in Super Mario 64.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it gets you every time. All right, Keith, round 11, you're up.
Man, so I'm gonna close out my world themes here, and part of me is like, I should go for the obvious one. I have the ice flower in here. Maybe I should go for a snowy, wintry theme. But
yeah, but no one's gonna vote for your game then if it has a snow level.
Notice how none of us picked a snow level or a water level.
Or water level, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. Nobody's gonna vote for it if you're perpetually underwater for a quarter of the game.
Of your game is gonna be underwater.
But I also want Peach to be able to really flex that hovering power that she has for some reason. And so I'm going to go with like a sky or a cloud theme.
Ooh, okay.
I like it.
Because I think, especially in a platforming sense, I think Mario is at its most interesting when you do have to think a little more vertically than horizontally. Because naturally for me, as somebody who's played a lot of the earlier Mario games, I have a tendency to just fly through the horizontal stages. It just seems more of like a race, whereas with the vertical stages, I would rather implement some sort of way to make the player stop and think about their movements than to just, run through the entire stage. So
yeah, and I think with your Bowser's Fury graphics style, that game showed that it could do verticality very well. Although, you are constrained to 2D gameplay, but still, it could. That game did do a lot of vertical. I remember that, like, some part, like, you were just like way, way, way up high. Like it was a big climb.
And also, Super Mario World had a lot of verticality too. Like, with the cape, there was a lot of verticality in the gameplay in there as well. But obviously, like you're saying, obviously Bowser's Fury is much more so it's 3D. But all right, Tri, you're up. Your round 11 pick. Your second to last pick. We're coming down to the wire. We are almost at the home stretch.
All right, so let's see. I gotta do soundtrack and bosses. The last two categories, the two categories that are at the very bottom of our list of options here. So for soundtrack, this is kind of one of those things where it's like, someone could pick the best one, but there's a lot of other good picks too, so that's why I kind of saved it for later. I was initially very tempted to use my Flexon soundtrack. Super Mario RPG is very tempting. Kind of, I think an unsung soundtrack is Paper Mario, The Origami King. I think that might be my favorite, like as a contender for my favorite video game soundtrack of like the past generation. If generations can even be defined anymore. That soundtrack is so good. But obviously I can't do that. So man, it's actually, I actually don't know for sure what I'm going to pick. It's, I love the music of the 2D games, but a lot of those soundtracks are pretty limited. Yoshi's Island, though, man, that's got a really good soundtrack. But honestly, I think I'm going to have to go, it's got to be between Galaxy and Odyssey, I'd say. I think I know the Galaxy soundtrack better. And I love its, epic spacefaring vibes, even though my game is not necessarily a spacefaring game. And then Mario Odyssey, I don't know the soundtrack as well, unfortunately, mostly because like Nintendo like doesn't really do a lot of CDs anymore, and I like collecting my music CDs, and that's
Mhm.
you know, that's actually how I became more acquainted with the Mario 3D World soundtrack. Because the first time I played that was actually like 4 players on a stream, and it was pure chaos. And like I just like the soundtrack made like no impression on me, right? And then I bought the CD and listened to it a bunch, and I'm like, man, yeah, I really dig this. So similarly, because Odyssey hasn't gotten a soundtrack, it's not made as much of an impression, but I do like that they have a couple of those vocal themes in there that you know were definitely really impactful, I thought. But you know, it is tough between Odyssey and Galaxy for the soundtrack, but I think I am going to go with Galaxy, the Galaxy series, since that is kind of consolidated in our list here. I'm a little surprised that wasn't picked. I love, I mean, especially the first game. I feel like a lot of the music in the second Galaxy game was like, okay, how can we do more of the same but different? I love the soundtrack in the first Galaxy. It's really good, and crucially, it has the airship theme, which I need for my airship world theme to be everything that I want for it to be. So I do have to go with Galaxy, especially for that reason. There's so much good music in the Galaxy games, so especially the first one. So
I was going to throw hands with someone if no one picked Galaxy. I don't know who I was going to throw hands with, but Galaxy is like my favorite Mario soundtrack of all time. As I mentioned before, it's one of the soundtracks that like really puts me in an emotional state. It's God, I love it so much.
It is great. Yeah. The only thing about Odyssey that was making a contender was, I mean, there is some great music in there, but it's really the addition of the vocal themes, which feels surprising for Mario. But I would like to see that continue. But the Galaxy series probably, especially the first one, probably had the biggest impact on me, especially of the more recent games in terms of its soundtrack.
All right, Diamond, your final 2 picks. You are bringing us into the home stretch. Your 11th round pick and your 12th and final pick.
All right. Well, my long-awaited third power-up pick will be the Double Cherry. I think Double Cherry is so fun. I think I think it's honestly underutilized in those 3D games. So I'd like to see a game that you put more use to it. So I'd like a Double Cherry. And it's also very much in keeping with we got food levels, we got Yoshi, so why not have some fruit?
Perfect fit. And I'm with you. I think Double Cherry is super underutilized. I wish it would appear in more than just, it only appears in 3D World and 3D Land, right? Like that's the only place. Super cool idea. And you would think that having to control multiple Marios with one joystick would be a pain in the butt, but man, is their level design really good.
And as I reach my last pick, I just realized actually what I'm going with actually already has cherries in it, but they're very different cherries. So maybe I have to distinguish between the Double Cherry and the regular cherries, because I am going for Super Mario Bros. 2 gameplay. That's right.
Get some pick up and throw going.
That's right. We're not stomping, we're grabbing. We're grabbing, we're digging, we're climbing, we got potions. Yeah. So Super Mario Bros. 2 gameplay, which, as I said, has cherries in it, but I guess maybe we'll figure something out with them. Maybe we'll replace them with a different fruit. But
well, I mean, Double Cherry is fundamentally a different item, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, that's I think that's super cool, and it goes along with your bosses.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love that. So you have a different graphical style. You have than like the traditional Mario, and you have a different gameplay style than the traditional Mario. I like it.
I am a sucker for Super Mario Bros. 2. I've never beaten it because I'm bad at it, but I really like that game a lot. Well, that was a really great last pick. All right, try your final pick of the Super Mario Fantasy Draft.
All right. Well, I've got to pick my bosses. And And obviously I have a lot of choices here. You know, the obvious pick, Yoshi's Island, was already taken. But that wasn't what I was going to go with. You know, Yoshi's Island definitely has the best bosses in the series, but I am a sucker for the Koopalings. I love the Koopalings. And I think it is an absolute crime that they have never been in any of the 3D games.
Okay.
And the best thing that the new Super Mario Brothers games did was bring back the Koopalings. You know, they came back starting with New Super Mario Brothers Wii. That made me so happy. And honestly, while I don't specifically remember how like the fights go in any of those games, because all of the new games just go to mush, right? Like, I mean, it all blends together in your mind because they're all kind of the same. But I'm going to do the bosses from New Super Mario Brothers U. Specifically because it's got all the Koopalings, and I don't remember if Kamek specifically is a boss in any of the other new games, but I know for sure he's a boss in New Super Mario Brothers U, and I love Kamek as well. When Yoshi's Island came out in October 1995, I dressed up as Kamek for Halloween. I love Kamek. It crushed me. I still have a grudge against Donkey Kong when they previewed Mario Kart 64, Kamek was one of the playable characters in the earliest screenshots of the game. And when the game comes out, it's Donkey Kong instead of Kamek. I'll never forgive him for that, even though I love Donkey Kong Country. I love Kamek. I love the Koopalings. New Super Mario Brothers U gets me both of those. And, you know, I also think, even though I don't remember the specific gameplay of the fights, they're going to have to be reimagined to some extent for Super Mario 64 gameplay anyway. So there's still a freshness element. I just want to see the Koopalings in a 3D Super Mario game.
Does anybody here enjoy the Broodals? Do they like the Broodals?
I think they're some of the worst boss designs ever in the history of video games.
They grew on me.
Yeah.
I do like the Ma Broodal, and I also like the fact that they play on the whole like Japan and rabbits on the moon thing, because I thought it like what made the Broodals click for me was when it's like, oh, they come from the moon, like in the whole game. You know, I didn't know where the game was going to end up when I was playing it, but the whole game was leading up to this showdown on the moon. And so then it's like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. And I also like that like lo-fi music that like you can hear from a distance from their airships, like when they're nearby. I kind of like that. And I also really like the music when they fight you in like that mech in
the good mech in the
Koopa Kingdom. I really like the music in that fight. That's a really fun fight. I actually kind of like the Broodals. I'm going to be honest with you.
I just think when you talk about the Koopalings, it was such a missed opportunity to not at least incorporate.
It was. I agree. Would I have preferred it to have been them? Yes, but I do think, especially when the game ends up on the moon, and that's where the Broodals come from, because like they're like wedding organizers, and the wedding chapel is on the moon. Like it all just like it makes sense in that very Japanese way. So I actually kind of do like them, but I think the Koopalings are long overdue for being in like a mainline 3D Mario.
I will just say that you fight each Broodal twice. There's 4 of them. You could have put the Koopalings instead.
Yeah.
And the Koopalings do that naturally. In every game they're featured in, they're in pairs of 2s mechanically. In World, in Super Mario Brothers 3, like they could have just done that in 3D.
Oh, you mean like where like Wendy and Lemmy are both like pipe bosses in the world.
Exactly.
Or like Roy and Ludwig are both stompy bosses in 3. Yeah.
They could have just done that again. Yeah. It was a missed opportunity. I get the moon stuff, but like it feels like it's right there.
I want to make sure you understand and consent to what you're doing here, but by picking new Super Mario Bros. U bosses, that means you're also inviting Bowser Jr. into your game. Is that okay?
I mean, I don't. Is there? I mean, unless I picked 3 or World, like is Bowser Jr. in Wii or 2? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
But
There's
the
so
reason
much to keep
I mean,
track
like,
of.
I do not love Bowser Jr. by any means. I've learned to tolerate him, but I mean, similar to my feelings on Donkey Kong taking away Kamek and Mario Kart 64, I feel like Bowser Jr. is taking away Koopalings for me. But I'm being safe in picking new Super Mario Bros. U because I know I know for sure Kamek is a boss in that game, and I don't remember if he was for sure. Like, I know he was in a lot of the others, but I don't remember if he was a boss specifically. And I want Kamek to be a boss. I want all the Koopalings to be bosses. If that means Bowser Jr. has to come along, so be it. But yeah, I can tolerate Bowser Jr., but yeah, every time I see him, I'm like, you're not a Koopaling.
No, now that the Koopalings are back, we have and Bowser Jr. You're stuck with him,
And Kamek.
and Kamek.
It's all worth it for Kamek.
Your Mario game has been rounded out. Keith, let's round out your Mario game with your final pick of the draft.
Yeah, so my last power-up, I'm surprised, hasn't been taken. And I guess some would say the better version of what I'm about to pick. But it is the, what do you call it? The Super Leaf.
Well, that was what I was debating at the very beginning. I was like, aesthetically, I love this. I love the iconic, like, Raccoon Mario on the Mario 3 box art. I love that power up. I love how it feels controlling in 2D. But I thought it might be mechanically a little weird in 3D. But
Sure,
I thought about it. I mean, my game does borrow a lot from Mario 3, which, is very much something I would do. So I'm glad someone picked it.
Yeah, as far as the list of power-ups that I had already chosen, I'm like, I'm pretty offensive here. I don't have really any, the Super Leaf isn't exactly defensive or anything like that, but I wanted something that would lend a player a little bit more of exploration.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to if I'm going to have like a cloud stage or something like that, you got to be able to fly, right? Oh, yeah. And there's tons of hidden secrets in the Mario games. It's pretty much par for the course, and you need some way to get to those. So, yeah, I feel like there's just so much nostalgia tied to the Super Leaf too for me. I mean, I don't really have to get into all of it. It's so iconic. I mean, just right on when you see the Super Mario Brothers 3 box, just big old Raccoon Mario, like front and center. Like it's so iconic.
I love the North American box for that reason.
Yeah.
It's also the first time Mario flew. Like, he's flown in a ton of games since, but that was the first power up to make Mario fly.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt so groundbreaking at the time. But anyway, we are running super long, so I don't want to gush too much more about it. Matt, you are closing us out. The final and last pick, I think, if I'm correct, the 48th overall pick in the draft. So what's your final pick?
So my final world pick, there are a few things that are iconic still left on the list. A lava world, a jungle world, a grassland, plains. But, like, I think I have to go for something a little quirkier and more fun. I think also with my kaiju vibe of Bowser's Fury, I have to pick the city urban metro theme. Pretty much, of course, most prominently featured in Mario Odyssey, but, like, specifically because I've got that, like, kaiju mechanic, I really think I need that world. Also, as far as I see it, I get Pauline with it, and Pauline rules. So
There you go.
But yeah, it felt like too good to pass up as doing a game with kaiju kind of style mechanics. With you got to have that city theme.
Good pick.
I love that too, just because it fits perfectly. And also, real talk, I think Jump Up Superstar is awesome. I love that song.
It's a great, like, Mario doesn't have a ton of pop songs, and it's a
No.
great, fun pop song. So, yeah.
But all right, everybody, that wraps up the draft. 12 rounds have happened. 48 picks have been made. The 4 guests here have drafted their ideal Super Mario game. So I'm going to throw it over to my contestants here, to my guests here, to pitch their games to you, and there will be a link in the show notes as well as on social media and anywhere else I can broadcast it for you to vote on who won the Super Mario Fantasy Draft for the 300th episode of the Still Loading podcast. So Matt, throwing it over to you, so we're going to go in draft order. Pitch your game to the listeners. What's the name and what's it all about?
So I'm going to start with what it's about. So my graphics and visuals are Super Mario Wonder, and my gameplay is Bowser's Fury. So my bosses are from Mario Land 2. So my final boss, the main antagonist, is Wario. He's back in the antagonist seat, and he is torturing Mario the only way he knows how. He has trapped Mario in Wario's nightmares. So in this world, Wario is larger than life, kaiju sized, and dominates this world, and Mario has to fight his way to defeating all of these bosses that Wario has laid out in his nightmares, and these worlds take these different forms. It's why Mario can, use all of these strange powers, and why Mallow is there with almost no context. It is because you are living through the bizarre mind of Wario, ultimately ending with a showdown in this dark world in the deep pits of his brain, facing off against Wario. And I am calling this game Super Mario Mania, because you are dealing with the mania of the mind of Wario.
Ooh, man.
I like it.
That's a tough pitch to follow.
Now, the way you say that, I'm picturing Wario like living in a cell, like Hannibal Lecter style, like he's just going off the deep end. Like, we can't let him out. Don't let him whisper to you. You'll kill yourself.
Does he call Mario Maurice? Yes, Maurice. Do my best Hannibal Lecter. All right, Keith, pitch your Mario Fantasy Draft, the game title and everything it's about.
Well, much like Miyamoto himself, I am more gameplay focused than I am story focused. So why is the Master Sword in my game? I don't know. That's for you to find out. It's just going to work. But as someone who is biased towards just the 2D Marios in general, it's gameplay first, baby. You're going to get just a straight up great 2D action platformer starring Mario and Peach, and perhaps Kamek transported them through a portal somewhere where they have to relive a couple different boss fights, and baby, that's why the Master Sword shows up. Either way, some of the Mario games kind of lost their traction with their naming conventions. So when you get into like the new Super Mario Brothers series, and this one will be no different, because I'm going to call it The Legend of Zelda: New Super Mario World 3 Deluxe.
Oh my god, I can't wait until a bunch of Zelda and Mario fans are just like, what? Take it way too seriously. All right, Try, you're up next.
All right, so this is the long awaited true sequel to Super Mario 64. It plays just like Super Mario 64, but it's got the latest and greatest and Nintendo quality Switch graphics with Super Mario Odyssey style graphics and art design with all the awesome colors and settings, sorts of not the settings necessarily, because my settings include the airships that you might see in Super Mario Brothers 3, and you've got Nimbus Land and the Cloud People from Super Mario RPG, and you've got everyone's favorite, the big oversized tiny huge island style or World 4 and Mario 3 type thing, and you've got Pipeland for a little bit of sort of some some maze action and vertical platforming. The soundtrack is, bombastic like Super Mario Galaxy. And player 2 is Wario, who is finally being properly integrated into the mainline Super Mario games. And Mario and Wario both will be able to fly with the cape from the feather power up. However, Wario gets off the ground with that. You've got the super ball that you can ricochet around walls and collect coins and other items, and I'm really interested to see how that works. And of course, the penguin suit that will let you build up lots of momentum, and I'm sure a lot of speedrunner strats will emerge from that. And of course, the debut of the Koopalings in the 3D Super Mario platformers, and we've got Kamek, who has been in those games before as well, but he should be in every Super Mario game. I love Kamek, and we are begrudgingly accepting that Bowser Jr. is also along for the ride, but we don't begrudge him so much this time because he is not there in lieu of Koopalings. So it's all good, Bowser Jr. You're allowed at the kids' table here. And this game, as the true sequel to Super Mario 64, is Super Mario 65.
Well done.
All right, Diamond, cap it off. The final pitch to the audience. What is your Super Mario game?
I would drop my mic, but honestly, it cost me a pretty penny, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, here it is. Super Mario Brothers 2. Okay, you got Mario, you got Luigi. They're having a shared dream about their childhood. Remember how Yoshi's Island revealed they were babies together? Well, now they're remembering back to their youth. A time where they couldn't have enough sweets. They couldn't have enough sweets. They thought about castles and monsters and magic, and then somehow these creatures showed up from their other dream game. And oh yeah, their friend Yoshi's there too. And the Super Crown is there because they're young. Maybe they're wondering, well, what if I grew up and became a princess too? So yeah, Super Mario Brothers 2, and the beautiful part is in Japan they can call it Super Mario USA 2, and that'll be just as good.
Now,
or it could be Super Mario Brothers 5, and it's like, right. Oh man, Japan got Super Mario Brothers 5, but we didn't.
Now, when you say Super Mario 2, is it Super Mario 2 as in the number 2 and then TOO as in the word?
Ooh.
It is going to be 2 the Arabic numeral and then 2 the Roman numeral to make sure that everyone understands that it is 2 different 2s. It is a second 2.
I mean that kind of goes along with like the original Doki Doki Panic theming, really.
Yeah,
it's like all coming full circle.
I was really expecting you just to write out like TWO, like Super Mario 2, the Roman, like the numeral, and then TWO right out. But I like the Roman numeral even more.
You could have went the Panzer Dragoon 2's Y route.
Oh
and
yeah,
Mario Brothers 2's Y,
or like Hot Shots Part Dua, and just do
there you go.
Dua.
I mean, if you want to keep Mario's Italian heritage there, you got, what is it, Due in Italian?
Due,
right?
Yeah.
I'm not a big Romance language speaker, but still.
Oh my God. Well, all right. Well, there you have it, listeners. That is all 4 drafts: Super Mario Mania, Super Mario 65, The Legend of Zelda New Super Mario World 3 Deluxe, or whatever it was called, and Super Mario 2. Now you decide who drafted the best Super Mario game. Once again, there will be a link in the show notes as well as a link on my Twitter. I refuse to call it the other place. My Twitter, my Instagram, my Blue Sky, my Thread, every goddamn social media place that I'm on, I will put it up there. But yeah, that is what you can do. So let's wrap up this episode. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It went longer than I was expecting. I guess that's kind of par for the course. And Diamond, I am so sorry. I know it's like the afternoon for you, so you missed lunch because of this episode, which seems to be par for the course whenever you have been on my show.
I will eat lunch right after this. No problem.
thank you, but all of you, thank you for joining me for this 3-hour long episode, for episode 300. Actually, kind of perfect timing for that. Seriously, thank you all so much. Where can the good people find you, and is there anything you would like to promote? We will go in draft order just to make things easy. Matt, we'll start off with you.
Sure. So the best place to find me is at djstormageddon.com. That's where all of my podcasts, my merch, my Ko-fi, my Patreon for fun and games, all of that is over there. On social media, I'm DJ_Stormageddon in all places except Blue Sky. I'm just DJ Stormageddon there because apparently they hate underscores for some reason. Don't quite understand it. I guess the podcast that's most relevant to this show is probably Fun and Games. You have done, our gracious host has done an episode of SideQuest a little while ago. It was on Power Pete, right?
Yes, an obscure Mac shoot 'em up game, which is fantastic and super underrated still.
But Fun and Games, for those who don't know, real quick, is a discussion-based podcast that I host with the incredible Jeff Moonen. We often have guests and we do console retrospectives. We talk about genres. We talk about things going on in the games industry. We've had devs on. We've had composers on. We've had voice actors on. We kind of just love celebrating video games. And a sub-series within that feed, as I alluded to, talking about what Josh had done, is a series where a different host every episode comes on and talks about a game they love and why they love it. And it's open to everybody, podcasters, non-podcasters, fans, pretty much anyone who wants to talk into a voice memo for 15 minutes about a game they love. It's one of my favorite things that I get to make amongst all the cool things that I make. And yeah, if you see me in the social spaces or on a Discord somewhere, please say hi.
All right, Keith, over to you.
First of all, Josh, thanks for having me back on. This was something I was looking forward to since you reached out to me, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks, man.
No problem.
As far as where you can find me, I'm pretty much all over the internet. You're really not going to find me on social media too much these days, but to find everything, you can go to linktr.ee/mainquestpod. And of course, that is related to the podcast that I host, which is somewhat sunsetting at this point.
Yeah.
Which is also called the Main Quest Podcast, where you can listen to me talk about really old video games. And, if you want a good place to start, you can start at episode Josh was a part of, where we talked about the Super Mario All-Stars game, which
also
is
Tasmania.
Yeah, if you want to go a little more unconventional, there is Tasmania as well. Those are on two separate feeds. You can find the Super Mario All-Stars episode on my Patreon feed, which I don't want to intimidate anybody. I'm not taking donations or anything like that. That's a free feed. It's just, I'm doing different things on the Patreon. So you'll find all sorts of crazy little episodes over there, whereas the main feed for the Main Quest is a little more in line with just retro gaming, period. But yeah, thanks for sticking it out on that Tasmania episode.
Dude, that was one of my favorite things ever to record. I asked to do that game literally because you put up a bunch of games that you're like in the order that you're covering them, because the whole theme of your show was kind of reliving your childhood of games you remember, and some of them obviously were nowhere near as good as you remembered, and some of them it was all over the place. And so I asked to join that because I'm like, well, I have Tasmania in my collection and I have never played it, so this will give me an excuse to finally play it. Little did I know I had the Super Nintendo version and not the Sega Genesis version, so I had to legally download a ROM and delete it within 24 hours, and I was a good boy and I played it that way. But I loved that episode, man. That was a lot of fun. So thank you for having me on for that.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, Try, over to you.
So I am not very many places on the internet. I don't really do social media, so I'm pretty much just on the My Life and Gaming YouTube channel, where me and my friend Corey do lots of various stuff. We're kind of known a lot for retro game tech overview type stuff and some documentaries, and it's really whatever we want to do. Oftentimes we'll do, more modern stuff, but I think it's always done with a retro gamer's mindset. And we stream on the YouTube channel every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And I also stream on the Backloggery Twitch channel Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, trying to get through the backlog with me and my the fellow co-founders of the Backloggery website. So yeah, that's pretty much where I am these days.
I totally forgot as well to mention at the top of the episode, listeners will have just heard you last week on the episode on Riven, which will have
yeah.
Riven? The sequel to Myst?
Yes,
indeed.
the
same.
same. Oh, that was a great episode, dude. I've at the time we're recording this, I have yet to start editing it. I have a whole bunch of other episodes in the can that in between now and then to edit. But anyway, and finally, of course, last but certainly not least, Diamond. Diamond, where can the good people find you online? Is there anything you'd like to promote?
Well, I do a lot of work for Retronauts these days, so you can go up, look for Retronauts, especially patreon.com/Retronauts, because a lot of the stuff I do for Retronauts ends up behind their paywall, including a weekly column, and we started a community show last year, and we do that every month, so that's fun, and Discord access, so that's all for Patreon supporters. But I am trying to be more out there in general, and I'm really hoping that this year is a big year for me, because I don't have a full-time job anymore, so yeah, I'm available, hire me, hello. And if you want to look for me on the internet, look for Fight Club, FEIT, that is my last name, CLUB, that's a noun or a verb that you already know.
All right. And of course, as for myself, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @StillLoadingPod on all those different places, Threads, Blue Sky, Twitch, YouTube, well, YouTube's @StillLoading Podcast, but all those places @StillLoadingPod. If you want to support the show, please consider giving it a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcasting app you use, because that helps more people find the show and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. And if you like this episode 300, please consider doing that. If you want to support the show monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/StillLoadingPod for $1 a month. You'll get all the episodes a few days earlier with better audio quality, as well as access to patron voting rights, which will let you choose future topics of the show. It helps guide the direction of the show. And that's all for $1. For $3 a month, you'll get everything I mentioned at the $1 tier, plus shout outs every single episode, patron shout outs like you heard at the beginning of this episode. Actually, this was the first time I've decided to do that. So all those patrons that you heard are lovely people who decided to support the show. For $4 a month, you'll get everything I mentioned prior, the shout outs, the early releases, the voting rights, as well as 2 mini bonus episodes every month that are about 15 to 20 minutes each, varying different topics. And then finally, there is a $5 level, which you'll get everything I mentioned before, plus access to Still Bonding, which Diamond has been on multiple times. It is my monthly James Bond podcast where me and a bunch of friends bond over 007. And at the time this episode is dropping, Tomorrow Never Dies will have just released. So if that interests you, that's 18 Bond movies, 18 Still Bonding episodes are out at the $5 level, and then whatever movie series I choose to do next. So yeah, that is where you can find me and support me. And thank you all once again for joining me. Listeners, make sure to follow them in all the places they mentioned just previously. I won't repeat everything, but seriously, thank you all so much for joining me. I'm really happy with how this episode turned out, and thank you for making my episode 300 a memorable one. So with all that said, listeners, I will see you all next time.
Good night.
Bye.